Meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order of November 17, 2021. Let the record show we are missing two commissioners, Commissioner Karski and Commissioner Cordnoy. Our first items today are the order of business. Mr. Hadley, are there any changes to the order of business?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. No, there are no changes to the order of business.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the order of business say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 2 on our agenda this morning is the minutes of the previous session of October 6, 2021. Commissioners, any corrections or additions to those minutes? If not, I'd look for an order to, a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Dukart, second by Commissioner Bollinger. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we will move into our agenda action items for this morning. First item we have on the agenda this morning is a rezoning request. This is to consider a rezone REZ-009-21 for a zone change from agricultural to rural residential for 159.87 acres located in the northeast quarter of Section 26, Township 140 North, Range 96 West, along 109th Avenue Southwest and 40th Street East in the city of Dickinson, ETZ, Stark County, North Dakota. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This zone change corresponds to the preliminary plat at number 2. It is a corresponding extension of the existing subdivision that's there to the west. Staff doesn't have any concerns with the zone change. When we get to the preliminary plat, the applicant is going to talk about the road. There's a road discussion that they want to basically propose to you. Staff would recommend, it is our current agricultural zone, and they're proposing to go to rural residential, which allows them to divide this up into those large acre lots. There hasn't been any comments from the public except for inquiries on this request.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Does the applicant have anything they would like to say regarding the zone change? Good morning.
Here on behalf of the applicant, with the zone change, we don't have anything
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soren. Commissioners, any questions on this for Mr. Soren? All right, thank you, Mr. Soren. This is a public hearing, so at this time we will open the public hearing. Anybody in the public has any questions, concerns, or comments regarding the rezoning request for this property, please step forward, state your name, and state your concerns. Anyone online can also call into 701-456-7006. Hopefully.
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Anyone in the public have any concerns or questions regarding the zoning change request for this property, please step forward. Okay, hearing or seeing none, we will close the public hearing on this request. Commissioners, any comments or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, I would move Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of REZ-009-21 for the 159.87 acres identified in this request in the northeast quarter of Section 26, Township 140 North, Range 96 West, 5th PM along 40th Street East and 109th Avenue Southwest as meeting the requirements of Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public, general health, safety, and welfare.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioners, any further discussion on this zoning? Sure. Hold your thoughts, everyone.
I'm the owner of that property, and this was supposed to be contingent on the approval of the preliminary plat. So I don't want it changed zone until we get the preliminary plat. So I don't know if we can table this or whatever, but it's contingent on getting this plat approved. If it's not approved, then I don't want the zoning changed.
Okay.
Okay?
And your name, could you just
Glenn
state?
Russell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russell. Mr.
Just-
Hadley, how do you, how
Just,
should,
just to clarify, the zone change needs to go through this public hearing and then go through the city commission for 2 readings. And if this preliminary plat, which you guys approve, the preliminary plat is approved, they can apply for a final plat. We just wouldn't take the zone change until the final plat came forward.
okay, so it'd
So
be a preliminary,
your
it'd be
motion
a,
now is fine.
it'd be a preliminary approval, and if they decide not to go through it, it would just
Then we
fall
just
off.
we wouldn't take it to the
City.
city commission.
Okay. All right, with understanding that, commissioners, any questions? We do
And
have a,
hopefully the applicant understands that.
we do have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of approving the zoning change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the zoning change is approved. We will move on to the second item, which would be on our agenda is the preliminary plat. This is to consider preliminary plat PLP-002, 002-21 Broken X Estates located in the northeast quarter of Section 26, Township 140 North, Range 96 West along 109th Avenue Southwest and 40th Street East, City of Dickinson, ETZ, Stark County, North Dakota. The request includes 48 proposed lots on 159.87 acres. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you said, this corresponds to that existing zone change we just talked about. The applicant is here to discuss, they want to propose some different road configurations and improvements. I don't believe staff has any other concerns but the actual road construction. There are outlined A through G conditions on page 2 of the staff report. I don't believe the applicant has any concerns, or there hasn't been any noted to staff to date. So I think where we need to start with this is probably what their proposal is and how they're planning to move forward with the development. And I think that's why the owner was reluctant to move the zone change forward. They want to get your response on where you'd like to go and the direction you'd like to go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hadley. If the
Yeah, that's
applicant
what I'm
or
confused.
his representative would like to come forward.
Chairman, Commissioners, once again, Sean Soren, Houston Engineering. With the preliminary plat, a little background, it is directly east of the Rochelle subdivision. It does propose 48 lots, 32 of which would be between 1.8 and 2.1 acres, and 16, excuse me, 3.8 to 4.2 acres. It continues the east-west streets from the existing subdivision all the way east out to 25th Avenue East. And then we also have some north-south roads that were requested from engineering that go, because of county standards, at 1,300 feet, or roughly you can't have a block longer than that. So there's one in the middle of the subdivision, and then there's one directly on the west boundary of the subdivision that runs north and south, which is adjacent to the existing subdivision where they did have a 30-foot right-of-way that was put in there. In looking at the development, it's in Chapter 34, I believe the code says that all streets have to be paved. And that's partly where this becomes somewhat of a question or an issue, concern for the owner. With these larger lots and having to pave all of this roadway, it does increase the cost substantially. Particularly, like if we do the east-west roads, which are the roads that are needed for the development of these lots, to get access to all of them, that's just about 50% roughly of the roads in the subdivision that would need to really be in for the access. Then if we do the one in the middle of the subdivision for the turnaround, so to speak, to connect, that brings it up to about 60% of the roads, which leaves 40% of these roads roughly are just for future development, in our opinion. And at 40%, that's about $700,000-$800,000 that has to put in just to pave those roads, just for maybe a future development coming, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And at that point, that pavement probably is going to need to be replaced anyway. So the proposal is that those roads, we build the roads and gravel them, and then just pave the main 2 roads that run through the subdivision. I think Mr. Roshaus had discussions with the county, and Al's here, and he can speak for himself, but it's our understanding that he's okay with that type of configuration and not having to go through and pave all of the streets throughout the subdivision at this time. We do understand there's concerns with platted right-of-ways and people start planting trees and stuff on them, and then it creates an issue down the road, which is where we'd propose to grade these streets in so people would know their roads and gravel them if we had to.
So your proposal would be the 2 east-west roads?
Correct.
What about the one that goes down the center of the biggest block?
Between the 2 east-west roads is what we're proposing.
Okay, that would be paved then too. So you're just looking not to pave
Not the
the
west
outside
one.
roads?
Yeah, not the west one. Not the 2 in the middle that go up to the section line or down to the,
So it's going to be 32nd Street East, 37th Street East, and then the connecting of
The blue
27th
one,
Avenue
yeah.
East, right?
Just the blue ones would be paved.
Yep.
Okay,
we believe there's a lot of need for a development like this. There's a lot of people looking for these types of lots and this size of acreage and close to town. We believe where this is located, you've got the nice development to the west that's already in place, pretty much simulating what we're looking to do. I believe people are pretty happy with that development, doesn't create problems. I think the direction this is going, we've already got some pretty large lots between this property and town that kind of create this type of development, move in this direction. We just believe it fits really well with that type of configuration.
and the lots to the west are paved, right? Are the roads to the west that would tie into these are paved now?
Recently, it was paved that come through.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure. Okay, any questions for Mr. Soren regarding this?
Mr. Chairman, what do you have?
Oh, Mr. Hadley?
The November 3rd Al Heiser email, you probably have that, Sean. If you don't have it in front of you, I can give it to you. But he does agree that paving 32nd and 37th would be acceptable and the others gravel. I think the one thing that the concern is for the commission and then the city commission and down the road, because we're dealing with that now, is that he's saying that at some point in time in the future, it could be paved. How and who is going to do that? You know, that's literally I wrote, who will finish those roads? So, you know, I realize, and I've suggested maybe a phasing schedule for this project to where preliminary plat comes in, it's approved, they come in with a final plat for the first 25 lots, finish the roads for that. And I know Sean has said that that isn't really the direction they'd like to go, but that would cut down that cost. I don't know if, do you have a copy of this?
Yeah, I believe I have his.
Okay.
his email, yeah.
I just think for the commission standpoint, approving a subdivision, because right now, we're going back, Loretta, unfortunately, is dealing with a number of subdivisions and miles of road that were approved that we didn't make go in. And so now, the taxpayers are having to foot the bill to put that road in. So I had asked the applicant to contact Mr. Heiser and talk about if the county would take those roads on and eventually finish and pave those roads. And Mr. Heiser's answer was no. But he didn't have a problem with just paving the roads that they wanted to do now. But there was no final plan on how the rest of those roads were going to be improved. So I think that's really the issue on this on the preliminary plat that we're talking about on this subdivision right now that is causing the confusion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Who owns the property to the north and south? Do we know?
To the south is Glenn Rothschild.
So
To
he
the
owns
nor-
all the property to the south?
Yes,
So if he'd want to develop that, I mean, in the future, we can make that a requirement of those roads.
correct.
To the north, we don't know.
To the north is 40th.
Oh, it's just 40th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sean, does that describe kind of what your understanding is of Al's comment?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then the challenge that we have, that we're trying to put together.
Yeah, and I understand that. I think from our perspective, the roads that need to be paved in the future, if that's 20 years from now, something's going to have to be done with those roads, even if they're done now, number one. And number two, from our perspective, those roads aren't really needed for this development. They're needed for future urban connectivity maybe, or as major collector streets. And at this point, you know, the city does take care of, like East Ballard, I'm sure the businesses didn't pay for all that to get taken care of and done, or 22 or 21st or 10th Avenue East, or
Is 40th paved now?
40th is a trail.
it's an unapproved
Yeah, it's a
section
trail.
line
So there-
right now. There's a gravel section about halfway through that's pretty well done, but from the middle of our proposed subdivision to the west, it's pretty much a dirt trail.
So what do we have in our comprehensive plan is what 40th is in the future?
I believe it's a collector, but I would have to double check that. But I know we've had discussions about, you know, what was decided in 2013. Is that really still working for us now? Also, to address Mr. Soren's comment about the city assisting in completing other roads in the community, a lot of those other roads are assisted with funding from the DOT because they're major arterials, or, you know, they're not residential roadways. And we've had those discussions come up quite a lot recently with why isn't Fifth done and all the traffic's going on River Drive? Why didn't we make them do that? You know, we've had those kind of discussions as an example. And for staff, we would just like to get your input on how we are going to handle this going forward. And, you know, is it your desire or your suggestion that we allow them to pave a few and gravel a few roadways? Their idea about graveling the right-of-way so that it's obvious to future residents that there is actually a road there and they're not utilizing it as part of their lot. I think that's really going to be helpful. But again, who's going to take care of those, developing those roads in the future and footing that bill? And, you know, maybe that's something that we have to work on and come up with a better policy moving forward. But right now, it's still a question. Staff's suggestion is that we do like we have been doing and the developer puts in the roadway. But
My only comment to that is, I mean, we're gonna pave a road to a trail. I mean, we're gonna make them incur cost of paving a road to a road that's not even there. I mean,
We
it's like a
completely
phantom road.
Get that. But it's, you know, we have that all over town where we haven't made them do that, developers, in the past. And now the question is why? Why didn't we make them do that? And, you know, staff that wasn't here at that time and commission that wasn't here at that time, we don't really have those answers. So a better process is needed on how we handle those going forward, especially the residential.
So is any part of 40th paved? I mean, there's 2 houses on 40th here. It looks like there are 3 properties. I think one's Mr. Winningham's, actually. Is that gravel or is that paved to his house?
It's all gravel.
Because, I mean, the center road would probably tie into what looks like is gravel out now. The road way to the west would tie into nothing.
Is there an issue with making it contingent upon what happens in the future, Loretta? So if we said when 40th Street does indeed get paved, that they would be required to pave from 37th to 40th to make that connection, and that when Mr. Rushow or whoever the owner may be at the time to the south develops that, they would be required to put in that road to 32nd heading south to connect that.
I think we could make those kind of agreements, but what happens going down the road is once properties get sold off and those lots are owned by others, who's covering that cost?
Okay.
And maybe it's a special assessment. You know,
So there's
maybe
other
that's
issues.
the way it moves forward. Because I'm sure, staff sure isn't disagreeing with the fact that if things don't progress and it's 20, 30 years down the road, we will need a new road.
Mhm.
So it's still, somebody's gonna have to pay for it.
Mr. Chairman, isn't that how we handle it? Each lot has a special assessment on it if it does go in later,
You're looking at,
or if it even goes in now, whatever. How they
it just
handle
makes, I mean, it makes it difficult to assess it later.
Well, I mean, if you put them on right away, when they buy the lot, they know they're paying special assessment.
I mean, the roads to the south, I don't think I have any issue with because it's going to an empty field. I mean, and if Mr. Rasho decides to develop that property to the south, that can be a requirement of that. So that solves that issue. I'm struggling with the fact that we're gonna make him put an asphalt road into a trail. And I get where we're coming from as a city, you know, if we ever expand out, whatever happens in the future, if 40 does get improved, who's gonna take that burden on, but I don't know, it's hard to do. Okay, what are we talking? Couple 100 feet? What are those, how deep are those lots?
$550 I believe, 545 to the north and 565 to the south.
Dean, is the county gonna improve 40th anytime soon?
No plans for that, no. Al, did you have?
Yeah, Al, you can come up if you'd like.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Al Hedges, Stark County Road Superintendent. You know, we've had this discussion about these streets, you know, and that's just a 2-track trail up there. And if I remember right, I think our subdivision policy says if the road is paved to it, it needs to be paved. So, yes, I can see it's paved from coming out of the subdivision going east, but when you get to the north end, it's not paved over there. So, I mean, it's kind of, yes, it is paved coming from the west going east, but there's nothing on the other end. And like I said, it's just a trail, so. And I honestly believe too, if these streets are gonna sit empty for, I don't know how many years, you know, the pavement's not good, not being driven on. And that's the reason why I kind of come up with that. I kind of supported that idea because I'm a firm believer pavement needs to be driven on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna crack and it's gonna maintain and, you know, and it's gonna push and do whatever it does. But remember this subdivision up north of States Avenue, or west of States Avenue, when the state put them streets in there. When it started developing them streets were really rough because nobody drove them, so. That's kind of where I'm coming with mine. So,
Thank you, Al.
thank you.
Commissioners? What are your
Mr. Chair?
thoughts? Yes, Mr.
I just wanted to make a comment, because there was a discussion about a special assessment. Doesn't the city special assessment ordinance only apply within city limits?
It does, I mean.
Yeah, so the county does not have an ordinance that addresses special assessment.
Well, that's, I mean, the only issue, if 40th ever gets approved, I would assume that would be at a point where the city is annexed that area. I mean, unless, like I said, that I don't think the county has any intentions as of right now to put that road in, so. That's probably way past our time, all of us here, but. I don't know. I just, if they're willing to gravel them, I think I'm good with it. What do you guys think?
I would agree. I don't think we can spend the money, the roads to nowhere at this point, that will need to be redone in 20 years.
I mean, just so that, you know, the property, that the owners that buy those lots adjoining those roads understand that it's not their lot, you know, at some point in the future that it could be a road. And the stuff to the south, if Mr. Rosso owns the stuff to the south, I'm okay with that, because if he comes in to develop that south property, I mean, that could be a requirement of the south property.
Are you good with that, Loretta?
Yeah, I think we can move forward with that direction, and we'll just note that in the file, and in future point at some time when they decide to move forward, then that information will be there for everyone, so they understand what the discussion was and where we were coming from. I know as staff, a lot of times we don't have that now, and it would have been helpful, so we'll do that for the future.
Go ahead, Scott.
If this would be annexed, if 40th would be improved, and we'd have to special assess, how far would that go? Would it be to the entire development, special assessment? Would it just be the north?
Well, typically, it's it joins the property, but I mean, I think the whole district could be the whole area, I think, but you might have the 50%
Depend on what's
protest.
the benefited area, I think. is
Yeah,
what we'd have to determine that.
But then 50% could protest it out
See, the
also.
South, yeah, lots protesting. Okay.
I do, if I could add just one more comment, I mean, I do understand what Mrs. Marshak's saying. You know, in town, you're a lot tighter, it's a lot different scenario than as we get out here. And as the city continues to look at even maybe the 4-mile ETZ area and taking on developments like that, I think there's discussion that has to be addressed as to, is everything gonna be paved 4 miles out now on developments as they start coming in, if that does happen? I think it's a
Yep.
worthy discussion to have anyway.
I agree. I think at this point, we know that we need to get a better policy for it, and we just haven't got there yet.
And, you know, I was speaking to Commissioner Master yesterday. I mean, I think the city and county just need to get their zoning codes on the same page too, and subdivision development. Because I agree, are we gonna force a subdivision 4 miles out to have paved roads to a gravel road? I'm not sure that makes sense at this point, you know.
And Mr. Chairman, gravel roads are fine until you have somebody driving above the speed limit, and then all of a sudden people be complaining about dust and dirt and whatever.
Yeah. What's the county's policy, Mr. Right now? Those outside subdivisions, do they require them to be paved?
I think Al mentioned it about it.
In the county, outside the ETZ, no, they're not required to be paved. Al can talk more about what's required for the surface.
No, they're not. Like I said earlier, it states if the paved road is right in front of it, it's got to be paved. But it doesn't make any sense to have a gravel road 4 miles in the country and then make them pave the streets. There's a subdivision just down the street on the other side of Raider Base Road there. The development is pretty active there. well, the pavement stops and their streets are gravel. So,
There have been cases where specific subdivisions, usually non-residential ones, where the county has required as a condition that they pave them, but no, for residential subdivision, no, there's no
Most people
paving.
figure if they're that far out, they're probably gonna be driven on a gravel road at some
Hard-
point.
exactly.
So,
No, there's nothing, the ordinance, the subdivision ordinance doesn't require paving.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Anyone else have any comments, commissioners, before they sit down? Okay, this is also a public hearing, so at this time, Mr. Rosso, if you've got a comment?
Yeah, Glenn Russell. One comment I'd like to make, it wasn't addressed. On the west side, there's that 30-foot easement on the existing property. It's saying it's a collector road, you want a 110-foot easement. I would like to ask that we could get that down to an 80-foot easement and abandon that 30-foot easement on the west, because there are some people that have trees and everything in that area already. It'd mean tearing down, I think, about 3 rows of trees on one property. I would hate to see that, and I guess if we can get by all the other easements, our road right-of-ways are 80 feet. If that west or east, I guess be the west boundary, could be 80 as well.
Loretta?
Well, I think we've touched on this discussion before. You know, it's future planning, and so we ask for that right-of-way based on our comprehensive plan and our transportation master plan. And so that's our suggestion to move forward. That's what city staff follows, is that plan for future development. I understand what Mr. Rochow is saying. You know, you have some pretty substantial trees, which is a big deal in our community, and so I understand the ask. But by requesting that right-of-way in the plat, that doesn't mean we're doing anything now. And if that road would never come to fruition, you know, maybe somewhere down the line past our time, they vacate the right-of-way. But at this point, it's just having that property there. So if we move in a direction for future development and we need that area for a future collector road or arterial, then we have it.
So,
So,
Mr. Rosso, go ahead.
so Loretta, you're saying I don't have to build that west road then?
Well, I just mean for that size that we're requesting.
So I can just build a narrow road in there, it doesn't have to be the full 110-foot easement? I guess I'm surprised that we're going down in standards. If I can do that, that's great, I'm happy with it.
Well, the full right-of-way is probably 110, but the road would never be that wide.
The road wouldn't necessarily be that wide, and at some future point, it would be an urban road with curb and gutter and utilities in it, and so something, a much higher standard than what we're talking about for you, Mr. Rochow. It's just having that for some future development somewhere down the road. We already would have that property available to us. We asked that at the time of plating. We've had projects in the past, State Avenue as an example, where it cost us a lot of money to get that from the property owners because we didn't have that future planning. That's just what we're asking for that area, to follow our comp plan and our transportation plan.
What street would that be?
Oh, I would have to look to see what that
Is that 18th?
extension would be.
That wouldn't be 18th, would it?
18th Avenue.
Would it be 18th Avenue?
Yep. Yeah, 18th Avenue.
I think
So
so.
that is a collector, but,
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's great if I don't have to remove the trees. I just don't want to disrupt those people at this point. I guess that's my main concern, is neighbors over there. I
the
don't
people,
think.
but, I mean, so the trees are on your lot, your property
No.
now?
They're on that 30-foot easement that's on the existing property over there. And they're saying they want 110, you know, which we'll give the 80 is no problem. But I was hoping we could get by with just that 80 rather than bothering these people over here.
I believe that extra right-of-way is already platted.
It is.
Yeah.
We already have that.
So it's 30 on one side, but we have, and 30, it's 30 on both sides right now, but we're asking him to give 80 to make it 110, is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
I don't believe there's anything on my side right now.
Well, it
I
would
would
be,
give the
It's
80.
30 on the one side right now. And what we're doing is adding the rest to it.
So you'd be adding 80 on your side.
Yeah. And that's the 110 feet he's referring to.
But I mean, he wouldn't have to build his gravel road in that 30. I mean, it'd
No.
be in the center somewhere of
This
that.
would be somewhere in the future if we need to expand and develop that roadway based on development and future expansion. We have that full right-of-way,
Yeah, I
and we
understand.
wouldn't have to ask
Yeah,
to purchase.
so you understand, it. You don't have to build it the whole 110 feet. We just want the ability, if we need to put a 90-foot road in there down the road, that we have the room to do it.
Perfect. I just wanted
Yeah.
to understand, I don't have to remove anybody's trees at this point, so.
No.
Okay.
And at that point, just to jump in, at that point, the Stark County Commission could actually, if the road was established, vacate a portion of that to those property owners as well, so. But that's an option when we get to that point.
So then we're okay with the right-of-way, everybody?
Mr. Chairman, we just did that for Mr. Arthod, right? On West, when he had to give up 110 feet too.
I believe so.
I believe that was the
So
same
when you set a
distance.
precedent, it's gotta be for everybody, not just for one person.
We ask that of every plat that comes in. We follow what we have in our comp plan and ask for that proposed right-of-way amount.
18th has always been an arterial. I mean, even though it doesn't cross the interstate, I think we've always recognized it as an arterial, so,
Yeah, we are just asking what it shows in the plan.
yeah. All right, everybody, the applicants are okay with this? So what we're saying here, we're okay with them just paving not paving, excuse me, graveling, whatever, a certain size road to the north,
North-south road.
and then are we gonna make him gravel any roads to the south, or are we gonna just let that go until he
South
tries
roads go to
to?
no place, right, at this point?
No, that's where I'm at with it. I mean,
Mr. Chairman, did we finish the public hearing part?
oh,
Or not?
did we even open the,
I don't know. I couldn't remember.
I don't
Tell you
think
the
we
truth.
even opened the public hearing yet, so I'm gonna do the public hearing next. I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page.
It's all right, yep.
So would we require him to what on the south? What do you guys, what's your wishes? What are your guys' wishes? Gravel roads to an empty field, or just give us the platted right away?
I think it's fine if that's going to be your direction for our amendment for our transportation plan in the ETZ in areas we don't see development happening immediately. But we still have to have a provision in there that we can get those completed if it does develop. So somehow we need to address that.
Well, I agree. And if he wasn't the south property owner, I would probably be a little more concerned.
Yep.
We can hold him to the fire if he ever wants to develop that, but
Yep.
But like Loretta said, if it changes ownership, then we're out of luck again, right?
Mhm.
but if that new owner comes in and wants to develop it, he would be held to the same
thing, hold
standard.
'em. Yeah.
So,
I guess Mr. Heiser's okay with it.
all right, then, if there's nothing else from the applicant, we will open the public hearing on this. This public hearing is to consider the preliminary plat of the Broken X Estates. Anybody in the public or online have any comments or concerns regarding this preliminary plat, please step forward and state your name and concerns. Online, you can call into 701-456-7006. Mr. Heiser.
I just have one comment. I know in Mr. Hadley's report, there was a question about what were the streets in the existing Rush Hour subdivision. If you go back in time, I think when they were originally built, they were gravel. And then the county actually hard surfaced them with armor coat. And then, I don't know, it's probably been 4 or 5 years, the county, when we had some funds available, we went in and put the pavement in there. So that's kind of the history behind the existing subdivision, so. I know there was.
Thank you for
There was a
clarifying.
little question, that's why I figured I'd clarify, that's kind of how it played out.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Heiser. One more time, anybody in the public have any comments or concerns regarding this preliminary plat? Please step forward. Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of PLP -002-2021, the preliminary plot for the Broken Estate subdivision as depicted in attachment A for 48 residential lots total, with conditions A-G as meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and also being in the interest of the public health, safety, and welfare.
Okay, do we want to, does your motion want to have any conditions?
Yeah, with the condition that 110, I don't know, Loretta, how do you want me to word that?
I think it says the preliminary plat's drawn, correct?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Soren put it on there correctly, didn't you?
Okay.
I believe it's on there.
But do we need
I don't
it-
think
So
we're
I
changing it.
don't know that you need to
I
change
think we're just
it.
asking to not
With
improve it.
condition.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
so we don't need to be, that, part of our motion that we're okay with them not paving those.
maybe just the motion
The
needs to include
paving.
that, but then the motion that you're doing needs to include that we're not, the expectation is the roadway is not going to be built to the full 110-foot width
Did you get that?
on the west side. How's that?
Okay, with the condition that the road will not be built.
Okay, let's stop here for a second. So what would be a standard county gravel road size that we would require them to put in there? Is that
Well,
40
I think
feet?
it's just-
Is that 40 feet or is that 36 feet?
We
Al?
it would be a typical county road section is what would be requested.
But I think we're going to require them to gravel the north roads, right? Even though it goes to nowhere, we're just not going to make them pave them. The south roads, we're not going to make them do anything, except give us the right of
Okay.
way. That's the way I understand it. Is that the way you guys understand it?
So we're talking, but my understanding was, Ms. Dukart, your question was about if you have to speak towards the right-of-way on the west side, the 110 feet. I think because of the way it's depicted in the preliminary plat, you don't have to address that. We're not changing anything from the drawing.
That's already on there, okay.
And
Correct.
and as far as the roads, the expectation is to follow the county standard, which they have a standard for road width and ditch sections and so forth.
Okay.
And, you know, it's just the paving aspect that we had a question. And I don't think we're making any urban roads or anything. We're just going to
No.
that standard
Yeah.
county.
So the two
Correct.
north little jogs that go into 40th, you're going to build to county gravel road standards and with
Correct.
ditches. The south ones, you're going to still obviously probably do the dirt work on them, but they just won't be gravelled. They'll just
Grade them and,
be done with them.
yeah.
Okay.
Jim, so we're not doing this
Yeah, we wouldn't do these two that are
one,
Xed
just
out.
the two shorty.
Yeah. These would be gravelled, I'm sorry.
Yep, yep.
These would be nothing.
Okay, and you're not doing anything with this one here? The 18th connector.
That would be paved, right?
18th will be paved.
32nd.
Is this one or not?
We're
Is it-
proposing not
No.
to do that.
My
You're
understanding
proposing
is
that would
the
be
one
part
in
of
the
the
middle.
gravel, correct?
Gravel.
That would be gravel?
No,
So it'd be gravelled all the way up there?
There you go, on that
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Okay,
to 40.
that's what I understood, yeah.
Yep.
From 32nd up to 40th, that one's gravel.
Oh.
And then from 37th to 40th, gravel.
Okay.
Correct?
Yep.
You get
We got it.
So the motion would basically state that approve the preliminary, Mr. Heisen.
I just, the question was, what is the county standard? If you look in our subdivision policy, it states a paved road is so wide, a gravel road is so wide, so it's in the policy, so you can just follow whatever the policy says. Your question was, how wide was it? It spells it out in there, how wide it is.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Mr. Heisen. So your motion would be approve the preliminary plat
with condition.
with the condition that the roads to the north that tie into 40th would be
Gravel.
those
Gravel, county standard.
county standard gravel roads. Those two short roads to the south would be left for future,
Dedicated but not improved.
dedicated, not approved.
And then 18th would be gravel from 32nd to 37th.
Do you agree with that motion?
Yep.
Sylvia, you got that?
Okay, and we also have 18th Avenue from 32nd to 37th
That would be gravelled.
with gravel.
Does everybody understand that motion?
And the east-west roads and the connector on 22nd between 32nd and 37th would be paved.
Correct. Is there a second?
So moved.
So, second by Troy?
Yep.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? I think we've had plenty of that, so. All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we will move on to our third item this morning, our rezoning request. This is to consider rezone REZ-008-21 for a zone change from R1 Single Family to CC Community Commercial for a 44,866 square foot parcel known as the West 150 feet, lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 4, Gressa Subdivision, along the 800 block of 8th Street Southwest, within the city of Dickinson city limits, Stark County, North Dakota. The request is in conformance with the city flume map. Mr. Hadley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's just to give you a general direction. It's directly north of Wynn Construction. There's an existing little shop on the property now. The rest of it has trees and is vacant. The proposed owner wants to build a shop and improve the shop that's there, but it would be minimal. It's not going to be a storage yard whatsoever. So it'll have to follow the community commercial guidelines. It is designated to go to commercial in our future land use map, and so I'm not quite sure the property just to the east of it was included and zoned commercial. This was not, but the future land use plan acknowledged it. So staff would recommend approval based on the fact that it is in our existing future land use map, and we're basically saying that we wanted to see it go commercial. I have received one phone call and one visit in the office, which is folks wanting to understand what could be done there.
So what is the property to the east is zoned how? Is it CC?
Community commercial.
That's CC also?
Yep, yep.
Okay, so it's conforming with that.
It's
property.
directly adjacent to it, yes.
Okay.
To the north and west is R1, single family. Across the street and then to the north is R1, single family. And I believe the applicant is in the audience.
And CC does kind of fall in our step down. I know it doesn't usually go right to R1, but
Yeah, it's kind of it can be kind of a harsh transition. The proposed new owner wants to keep all the trees, wants to keep fencing, wants to keep a good buffer between the residents to the north and.
just for an example, the strip malls along State Avenue are CC and it goes right to R1.
Yep.
So those office buildings, the Western Cooperative Credit Union
It's
building.
usually better if it
80s
goes
barbecue.
to more of a higher density residential. Usually it's more of an expectation that you have, but I think in that area they're pretty typical. In that area you can see that there's a number of CC operations that are directly adjacent to R1. I think it's just that was our solution at the time.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Is there an applicant here that would like to make any comments regarding this?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm Diana Zietz, Continental Real Estate, representing the applicant. Mr. Hadley stated it very eloquently. Do you have any questions for me?
Commissioners, any questions?
Nope.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Seats. All right, commissioners, I guess this is a public hearing. We will move forward with a public hearing regarding this. Anyone in the public have any comments, concerns, or questions regarding the rezoning request from R1 to CC on the 150 feet of lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 4, Gressa Subdivision? Please step forward, state your name and your concerns. Online, you can also call in to 456-7006. Once again, anyone in the public or online have any questions or concerns? Seeing or hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
Mr. Chairman, I move the City of Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of REZ 00821 zone change amendment from R1 low density residential to CC community commercial as depicted in attachment A and meeting all the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code and comprehensive plan, while also being in the interest of public health, safety, and welfare.
I'll second it.
Okay. Commissioners, any further discussion? Hearing none, we will go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Moving on to our next item this morning is exceptions, exclusions, vacation requests. 3, to consider 3 exclusion vacation requests from the property owners located in the following areas currently within the city limits of the city of Dickinson, Stark County, North Dakota. I believe this will be our first time that we've ever tackled something like this. Who's going to start, Mr. Hadley or Ms. Wanko?
I think Mr. Hadley has delegated the great task to me. As
Thank you, Ms.
Commissioner Frederick indicated, this is probably the first time the city has ever done anything like this. Obviously, there is a process by which the city annexes, and there is a process by which we exclude. And that is set by Century Code requirements. Basically, in a nutshell, what is required, a petition must be filed by 3/4 of the qualified electors of the owners of the assessed property. In this situation, we do have those petitioners have filed a petition with the city to annex that particular parcel of property. Notice has been given to the adjacent landowners. I believe they may be here to speak to that as well. That will have to go in front of you for a vote to determine whether you think that that's appropriate based on circumstances, including current development and the services that the city is currently providing. Ultimately, you would make the decision on whether it would be appropriate, given the circumstances, to exclude that property from current city limits. And I'll turn it back over to Mr. Hadley to give you the specifics about where the property is located and why exclusion may be necessary in this situation.
Thank you, Ms. Winko. Mr. Chairman, this property, all of these properties are owned by the same person. They had options for development, and the furthest west one is the Pinecrest. There was a mobile home court, and the western portion of the Pinecrest development that we don't currently have utilities that serve. The other portion is a Sundance Village, which is just east of the property that we just approved a preliminary plat on, across 109.
We have nothing farther east than that, right?
No.
We've annexed? That's what I thought.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And the property owner has been working with the city for probably a year or more, trying to get this organized. I appreciate his patience, and we are to the point where the property owners that are included in this have all been notified. I have received a couple calls. I know Sylvia has received a call or two. I haven't received any calls with anybody that's not in favor. It was more inquiring. We can't provide services to Sundance Village area, and we don't provide services to the western part of Pinecrest without us having a great investment to extend our services. And we've looked at that and basically said, yes, we could provide services there, but there are some other areas along the western part of the city that we feel right now are demanding more services and without city infrastructure involvement, which means tax dollars. So with that, staff would recommend approval of the exclusion for all 3 of these different parcels. It is a vacation as well. We're vacating, have to vacate plats when you do that. So Pinecrest, that portion of Pinecrest will be vacated. Sundance Village, whatever platted portion of that is in remnant of that would be vacated as well. So it winds up turning into one big piece of meets and bounds property, zoned agricultural, and the owner can farm it someone else at some point in time can come in with some sort of other development proposal to this commission.
Mr. Halley, so what's the benefit or negative effect to the owner if he just vacates the plot but leaves it in the city?
I believe that the taxes are probably the biggest, and we don't provide any services to it if it's in the city.
So even if, we have ag rate in our city zoning.
Right, yeah. Oh, it can be zoned ag, yeah. It can be zoned ag, but I think that the tax, and I'm not an expert on the tax numbers, but I believe that the tax rate being in the city is different than being in the county. And he has no desire to be in the city. The only reason he wanted to be was, I believe, and I'll let him speak to that, was that the same developer had an option, I believe, on both properties and wanted to pursue that. That's the only reason. I believe he's been farming it since then. It's been, a few years that nothing has really moved forward. So I think he just wants to kind of clean it up. We drew the lines in a very appropriate location in the Pinecrest development where we actually have public utilities that the city and the developer help pay to extend. So that area can be developed, and he's fully aware of that and fully on board with that. So we are keeping the areas that are most advantageous not only to us as a city, but we're also excluding the stuff that's more advantageous for him to not be.
So,
And we can't, like Sundance Village, we can't provide, I'll let Ms. Marshall, if she wants to jump in, our services are so taxed just to serve Sundance Cove. I really don't understand why we thought we could serve Sundance Village, because without some major improvements, I believe, we can't service that area, and it would be very expensive. So I don't know that we can even service from Sundance Cove back to 10th Avenue East with the services that we currently have. So that one, in my mind, is kind of a no-brainer because it was a little bit of an overreach. There would have been some very expensive upgrades to infrastructure that we would have either been involved with or the developer.
I know, but we took all that stuff along 21st into the city and now we can't provide services to it?
I think it's marginal. Do you want to jump in? And
I think that the capacities probably will service along the 21st, but then if you would develop that piece that was Sundance Village, we would probably have to upgrade or add additional lines to meet the capacities for that area. And then the property itself, it's just a little more difficult. The entire middle portion of that piece is all in the floodplain. So
Water feature?
Yeah. Make a good golf course. Like,
Slalom
so
field.
it's just at this point, we don't see that it's going to move forward that way, and it would take a large effort to get it to where we would have services provided. I think that the infill in our community is better suited.
And except for that little area that Sundance Cove is in, and then, yes, whatever we could service back, it hasn't been included in our study, our service boundary area, because for whatever reason it wasn't. So we're actually proposing to look at doing a study we call it the East Dickinson Plan. You haven't heard of that yet, but you will. It's for the interchange. We've got some development that's planned on the new interchange on the east side of town. And they want water and sewer. They want to be in the city. They're not in the city. And so we haven't really done any work on evaluating what we can serve and where we should relook at maybe designations for zoning, future land use, what we can serve. And that kind of ties in to the northwest, to this area.
I remember some discussions back where there was sewer and water was going to come across the interstate and come along the backside of Sundance Coves, I think.
Yeah. So we're looking at that.
I think that's how they were going to feed the village, probably. But I mean, obviously that's not there, so.
Yeah. So anyway, we are looking at that, so then we'll have a little better picture of that, what I'll call a better infill area. The interchange and then heading northwest toward the intersection of 21st and 10th Avenue East. That area is much more adjacent and probably suitable in the long run. Whether they, at this point in time, I don't think there's any plans to do any development there, but we probably should at least acknowledge that if development happened there, that we did have services and what we could do, instead of trying to do it as we're sitting here evaluating a project that comes in. So,
Mr. Chairman, they're all still zoned agricultural, right? Those
Yes.
things, yeah.
yes.
So they would just, they'd still be subject to city tax, where if they were out of the city, that would drop off. It would just be county tax, so they would have.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does the applicant have any questions or or comments regarding this vacation and exclusion request or exception request?
Isn't
I
there
don't know.
currently,
Nobody heard you.
isn't there currently something being built in Block 6 off of Pinecrest Parkway? There's I thought Bastewoods are building in there.
A new one?
Yeah, new.
Yeah, no. Everything, the boundary, if you look at the water tank,
Yep.
the new water tank that's up there, just to the west of it, probably, I'm gonna say 500 feet, to the west, and then straight down, we actually have utilities. Yes, there is a new house there, to answer your question, but we're not vacating or changing anything from that area. So it's across from Cornerstone Bank, and then just to the west of that, to Mr. Frenzel's homestead, where his driveway is. There's a well site, there's some other stuff there. There's a roadway that has sewer and water that goes up there already, right now. So we're not touching that. That is staying in the city. It's serviced by the city right now. Someone could go develop that tomorrow. They put a road in and tied to sewer and
I
water.
thought the building, I thought it was right off of Pinecrest Parkway there, because I was talking to our 911 address coordinator, said that they assigned a 911 address off of that. If they're vacating that, that street won't be
Right,
there.
we're vacating that, but it's further to the west. Pinecrest Parkway goes from 30th to whatever that north-south.
21st Street, isn't it? Well, no. Well, it's 21st is the east-west to the north.
Yeah, 21st is east-west, I'm thinking south, so 15th, is it 15th? So if 15th due north to 21st there.
It looks like a loop on here, though.
But Pinecrest Parkway starts at 30th, the old truck route, and goes all the way to 21st. The area from where it intersects 15th, not 15th, whatever that road, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. That intersection point where we provide services and the Frenzel Farm instead, basically that and a direct line up to 21st is out. Everything west of including the Frenzel Farm and the property line there, and everything north of 21st that was a manufactured home park. So Pinecrest Parkway did go through that and connect to 21st, so it would be vacated only in that area. It's not vacated the rest of the way. So Pinecrest Parkway still would exist from 30th to whatever I'm calling that street that we don't have a name on it yet.
Yeah, I wish we kind of had a vicinity map here so we can kind of understand, but,
This,
well, that's just a drawing, but
I have these.
It's west of
We
here.
can use these.
I think I
Just need to
can.
find the right one.
I think I understand, because I understand the area, because it's
Yep.
on here, but
These are in your packet.
yeah, it's just that the streets aren't exactly.
who's representing Mr. Frenzel? Nobody?
This is that connection of Pinecrest Park.
So this is 30th here?
No, 30th is way over
Okay.
here. These all fit together, so. Sundance Village. See, I won't have it. I won't have it going all the way to 30th because we're not vacating there. This is the adjacent lot that can be developed, let's say, by sewer and water. So from here to here on 21st is where Pinecrest Parkway is being vacated.
Where's Terry Dvorak's house and shop? Right here?
Yep. Water
That's-
tower's right here.
Very west of them.
Okay. This is like right here, Terry's house.
Yeah, that's that. This is the wall. It's here. Water tower's here. That new house is right here.
Okay, this is all further
Yeah,
to the
it's
west,
everything.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep. Yeah, I know where it is. Yep.
It's basically west of Terry's house.
Yep.
The border.
Yeah, that's what I figured, to the west of him. Yeah. Perfect. Yep.
All right.
All good.
Steve went and sketched up a quick map for us.
Right off the wall.
He's tearing stuff off. Must be ready to move.
Walter? So this is the area here. Yeah, this is the area here that's coming out. Do you have a pen?
Yeah, that.
Yes, yeah. Anyone else need to see this?
All good.
Nope, you guys are okay? Yeah, I think we're good. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
A lot of time left.
All right. I lost my place. Were we in the, have we started the public hearing yet?
Just now, but go ahead.
Okay. All right, if there's no other questions. We will open the public hearing regarding this. There's no comments by the applicant. So we open the public hearing. If anybody in the public or online has any comments or concerns regarding this exceptions, exclusions, and vacation request for these 3 parcels of property in the city of limits, please step forward, state your name and your concerns, or you can call in to 456-7006. You're gonna have to start coming more often now.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with, turning it back. Only question I have is when you go on a Raider-based road, so I understand correctly, east of the Raider-based road all the way to 40th, east will be back to the county, correct?
Is that correct?
Including that little subdivision that's from the
Yep.
Raider base, that'll be back to the county.
You want a copy of it?
Sure. And then, so basically, when you come down 21st, it makes the hook to the north and gets up to the top of the hill where the old, Mr. Rushall, his dad used to live there, Ralph lived there. So from there back, will still be in the city, correct?
I believe so, yes. The whole property's on, I believe, on the east side of 21st and right up this road.
I'm not concerned anything, I'm just concerned out on the west here. Okay. 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 That was my concern when you de-annex it, because we used to maintain the whole road, when the hell it was all annexed in. So now what I understand, north of the house will be the county, south of Mr. Rushall's house will be city maintenance.
I'm not sure.
Have you driven it since we repaved that? What I'm talking about, where the new pavement starts, the county's gonna maintain north, the city's gonna maintain to the back end.
He's going to maintain from Sundance Road back on 21st, whatever the agreement is. I have no idea what the agreement is, but I know there's an agreement.
The city limits is still right behind Ralph Rushall's old house.
It literally will go, where's that map from Steve?
My only concern, I don't have an issue with the de-annexation, is just who's got jurisdiction of the maintenance of that road? The rest of 21st, and then must be 109th as it comes around.
So this is all coming out.
Okay.
So,
And this is 21st.
yeah, so our city limits will go right here. So 21st is right here, so this is Sundance Cove, so we'll go from there to, yeah,
Just up the greater base hill.
yeah, that's here,
Okay.
that's here.
This 40th here.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm talking this curve as it comes around. It doesn't show the curve in here, but as it comes around, where the house is up here, what I understood this was going to be city lit.
That curve, I believe, is right here. And so there's probably a small portion of it that's still in the city. So I would think you have those agreements that you, and I don't know anything about those. So I mean, I would go out there, once this line is drawn right there, then you guys will have to figure out, it's gonna be like a third of the curve.
Well, it's
would be my
always a
guess.
maintenance
So,
issue. Whose
yeah.
role is it to maintain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we'll iron it out.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heisen. All right, we are still in the public hearing. Anybody have any comments or concerns regarding this exception, exclusion, and vacation request? Please come forward. All right, hearing or seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what are your wishes?
We have to do 3 motions.
We're gonna, if I understand right, we have to do a motion for each parcel? Okay.
I move the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the exclusion vacation request for parcel A as described above as meeting the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code, State of North Dakota Code, and also being in the interest of the public, general health, safety, and welfare.
Okay, do we have a second?
So moved.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to parcel B.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the exclusion vacation request for parcel B as described above, as meeting the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code, State of North Dakota Code, and also being in the interest of the public, general health, safety, and welfare.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Parcel C.
Chairman, I move the Dickinson Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the exclusion vacation request for parcel C as described above as meeting the requirements of the Dickinson Municipal Code, State of North Dakota Code, and also being in the interest of the public, general health, safety, and welfare.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Looks like that takes care of our action items. Our next item would be public issues of concern not on our agenda. If anybody in the public has any concerns or issues they'd like to bring up to the commission, this would be the time. Just step forward to the podium, state your name and concern, or call in to 456-7006. Anyone in the public have any comments for the commission? All right, seeing none, we will close that portion of our agenda and move on to item 5. Items not on our agenda. The first item there is, excuse me, special use permit review of Curaleaf annual report, FKA herbology / grassroots. Mr. Hadley, I'm assuming you're going to lead into this for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the Curaleaf, it was approved as grassroots. Their requirement for a special use permit requires that they have an annual review in front of your board. And with COVID, we're a little late and getting them and getting it organized and getting it here, but they've been very gracious. They are online, and they want to visit with you and go over what their plan is and how they've been operating. I did go by the operation. The only thing I can say, and of course this time of year it's not the best time to go and judge landscaping, but I'm going to say, that I don't know if they have any plans to improve their landscaping, but there's some landscaping issues that probably need to be addressed, and maybe a little site stormwater, but I don't think it's a big deal. With that, I believe that Des has them either on the line and ready to go. So, Stephen, if you could move that mic over closer to...
Tony with Curaleaf. Can you guys hear me okay?
Can you move that mic over closer to that? Just 1 second. Thank you. It's that little thing on the desk.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Is that a little better? How about now? I'll just keep talking until I get a thumbs up that it sounds okay. All right. Good deal. Thank you. So good morning. I have myself here. I'm up in Minot, and I have the store manager. We have our store manager present as well. I don't know if Heidi wants to step up to the podium. So Curaleaf has been operating. Heidi's been the store manager as long as Curaleaf has been operating, and so Heidi actually prepared the pictures that I believe you guys can see my screen here, right? The PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So we just kind of put together these photos that depict, what it looks like when traveling to the dispensary, from kind of when you go behind Walmart there, or go around Walmart, I should say. So this is coming from the west facing east. This is the north side of the building, kind of the northeast corner of the building. Here is what would be the southeast corner of the building. And then we move into the interior of the dispensary. So I've been in touch with Walter and his staff in the office there. We need to just make sure that we have a good reconciliation of what landscaping plans were submitted in accordance with this special use permit, in addition to, and so we can make any adjustments that may be necessary from there. So we'll continue to work with Walter on that item specifically. So we rebranded the dispensary from, it was Herbology originally, it was rebranded to Curaleaf in, Heidi, was that May? Sounds about right.
Yes, it was.
In May of this year, and have been operating as Curaleaf since. Our license with the North Dakota Medical Marijuana Department, or excuse me, the Department of Health Medical Marijuana Division, is currently in the process of being renewed. We have a December renewal date, and all of our paperwork is pending, but we don't anticipate any issues. We've got other Curaleaf dispensaries in the state that have all had their licenses successfully renewed. So with that, I guess I will open the floor to questions, and I will open the floor to questions, and either Heidi or myself should be able to answer anything you guys might have for us.
Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Ms. Hadley?
Yes, thank you for giving us the update. The one thing, if we could get the state license when that is completed and reviewed and submitted to the city so we can put it in your file, that would be great. I do appreciate you coming in. The staff has not received any complaints on this operation since it started when it was constructed. So commend you for that, and thank you for your operation.
Heidi runs a pretty tight ship down there, so it does not surprise me that you haven't received any complaints. The store, I'm our state compliance manager, so I audit dispensaries for, the 4 dispensaries that Curaleaf operates in North Dakota, as well as the cultivation and manufacturing facility in Fargo, where we grow and then process the marijuana into vape cartridges, oils, topicals, the medical marijuana products authorized. And Heidi's store is always super clean. She gets great reviews on the platforms where they review medical marijuana dispensaries. And so thank you for acknowledging that Heidi has worked very hard to have a super positive organization.
Thank you. Well, she's doing a great job.
All right. Sounds good. And Commissioners, do you have any questions for them on their annual report?
I just have one though.
Go ahead.
Does everyone have to have a prescription that comes in?
Yes, so, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
there you go.
In order to go into the store, like, we had that picture right there, that's the restricted access. So in order to get into that, you have to have a medical marijuana card issued by the state of North Dakota. And so in order to get to that point, you have to have gone and go to a physician or a nurse practitioner who will sign off saying that you have a qualifying condition that the state of North Dakota has authorized for you to have. Like, you have to have one of those qualifying conditions in order to get your med card. And then you apply through the state, pay $50, and then you will do your application. Your physician or registered nurse will also do it. And then the state of North Dakota will approve it. And that's the only way that you can go into our store and purchase medical marijuana. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Probably
it did. Thank you.
that and some.
Okay. Anyone else, Commissioners? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Hadley?
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? So do we?
Thank you for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
There's no action on this. I mean,
No,
it's just a review.
If there was a issue or problem or complaint or you had a concern, then this would be the time to address it. And
As far as the landscaping issues,
it's fine. We'll in the spring we'll work it out. They've looked at it. We'll come up with whatever we need to replace. I don't
okay.
think it's that big a deal.
Okay, sounds good. All right, we'll move on then to our next part of the agenda is our non-action items, our work session. First item on there is a review of Chapter 3. This is Local Economy and Economic Development, Dickinson 2035 Roadmap to the Future Objectives, and Policies Review and Evaluation. Mr. Hadley.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Josephson is going to handle these next three items and introduce them, and I'll just interject. We do have some guests in the audience that have been involved in parts of this, so it's part of our just comp plan review that we keep plugging away on.
Okay,
Okay.
Mr. Josephson.
Thank you, Chairman Friedrich. Commissioner Steve Josephson. Part of what, as you know, part of what we've been doing is we've been going through the goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan that was adopted back in 2013 and reviewing them to see what the city has accomplished and to look at possible changes, changes as part of this. The first one was was Chapter 3, which is about local economy and economic development. To really evaluate how the city is doing on this, we're going to need to get some data from the U.S. Census, the American Community Survey, which I understand from the latest email I read from the U.S. Census Department they were hoping to have it by the end of this year. It'll be probably next year before we get some profiles on the kind of workforce we have here and the jobs that they're in and so on. But we can go through the policies that were in here. What you have is a memo that describes what policies have been the city has accomplished, and you have ones that'll be reviewed, and then you have a sheet on the back of this which talks about how they were implemented. There were a number of policies that were related to downtown development. The city has been funding downtown streetscape improvements, and also has been actively promoting the Renaissance Zone. We may actually have another application coming in, we hope in 2022. Going to sit down with a potential applicant this afternoon. The city did do a downtown revitalization plan. That was the one that was done by V3 Studio. That was the one where it initially had proposed putting the town square over on Sims and Villard, but that study was completed, and there were some things in there in terms of appearance that the city can utilize. Also did approve a affordable housing and providing affordable housing up in, it's up in Cook Subdivision. It has also established a capital improvement program to, that was one of the policies also, as well as cooperation with the airport, and also saying that the city is going to need to issue some bonds, rather prudent policy in terms of bonds to make growth related investments. There were a number of policies in there that, on reflection, need to be reviewed, like moving the band shell to downtown. That was a recommendation. There's not really a need for that with the new town square. There was talk in here about coordinating with the county for new social services building and other county buildings. The county located elsewhere, but there was cooperation with the city in the expansion of the existing courthouse. And then also looking at policies to try to encourage development of commercial retail uses within walking distance of the university and within planned residential areas. There were also some other things that we had talked to. We had talked to start development, such as providing different training programs, for the community, and they listed a number of them that are out there. And also with the Convention Visitors Bureau, promoting tourism here in Dickinson and Stark County, and they've secured funding for that. So this is one of those things, again, when the comp plan was finalized and adopted in 2013, so much of the drive was on the boom and the anticipated, population and economic effects of the boom, and we know now that things are different. So, once we're able to get some information and see what the workforce is like here, we'll probably be looking at making some other recommendations, to Planning and Zoning Commission and the County Commission of things to follow in the future. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in. Stephen, thank you. I think that as we go through these, and Stephen's done a good job of meticulously going through each of the policies and what we've done, and then we review it together. We've actually had a great number of successes that we've actually been able to move forward on. Not all of them, no. But we have actually made pretty good success with the staff and the ability and what we have to work with. We've actually wound up accomplishing a number of these goals with other partners that we've been working with throughout the years as this comp plan was adopted. Obviously, this discussion has come up a number of times in all of these applications that we hear and whatever. That's why we're updating the comprehensive plan, because we need to bring it to every 5 years. We should review it and make sure it's a good snapshot. We did discuss it in 2017, and there wasn't a lot of interest in moving forward on that at that time. We were busy with other things, so it's taken us a little while to get it moving. Stephen has plugged away on little code amendments and this and that for a number of years. But we're hoping to really make some progress. KLJ is on board and doing some work with this as well that will complement it and give us some gauges to show our progress on what we've actually achieved and what we haven't. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley, Mr. Josephson. We will move on to the next item, review of Chapter 9. This is the Recreation and Cultural Resources of Dickinson 2035 Roadmap to Future Objectives and Policies Review and Evaluation. Mr. Josephson.
Thank you, Chairman Friedrich. Commissioners, this is Steve Josephson. Again, as was stated, this is the review of Chapter 9, the Recreation and Cultural Resources portion of the comprehensive plan. And this is a case where there are a number of policies in here which were actually recommendations to Parks and Recreation. We do have James Kramer here from Parks and Recreation, who, once I go through reviewing this, will make some comments. And we also have have Bob Furman from the museum, and the reason why is because there were some policies in here that were directed at the Historic Preservation Commission, and he'll have some brief comments about that. I think one of the interesting things about this element is you go through the policies, is it really has established, you know, strategies where both the city and county, the city and the park board have been working, together to, do things such as when there are residential subdivisions come in, to either ask developers for land to be donated to the Parks Department, or to collect fees in lieu of that, to support the Parks and Recreation. There have also been cases too where the city and the city and the park board have worked together on the trail system, and that's also part of the development review process, as well as, acquiring land and using land, and then also what to do with underutilized and unutilized land also. So there are a number of these issues where both the city and Parks and Rec have worked. I believe they work together well, to try and, as our population grows, I think we have a really good park system here, and I may be understating that. I think the intent of the policies in here were to maintain, as the population of Dickinson grows, is to maintain and even make that, make that better. There are also some things in here, the shoulds for the Parks and Recreation Department in terms of doing a master plan, and Mr. Kramer can address that. There's also partial policies which you and Mr. Hadley may want to talk about this, where the Park Board and the City of Dickinson are going to work on it, on Lake Patterson project, to try to improve the quality of the waters there and try to improve the recreational experience for, not just for city residents and Stark County residents, but, anyone in North Dakota or nationwide who happens to come here and wishes to, to enjoy that. The reason why I've asked Mr. Furman to come here is because there was some direction to the, the Historic Preservation Commission about conducting, cultural resource survey, and then so he's here to address that. And some of these were fairly specific in terms of developing an inventory for all historic properties and places in the city, and reporting to the City Commission about creating more than one historic district. There's currently one historic district, and that's where Dickinson State University is. So I would like to ask Mr. Kramer to come up and just talk a little bit about the master plan and the cooperation between the city and the park board that I believe this comprehensive plan has encouraged and fostered.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. James Kramer, Director of Parks and Recreation. First, thank you to Walter and Stephen for including the Park District. Our staff sat down with both of them on a couple different occasions and reviewed the comp plan. We were involved with the original comp plan in 2011, participated through that entire process. At that point in time, the focus on the comp plan in the Park District really was twofold in my mind: trail planning and connectivity with our trails, and then park impact on land development. We really focused a lot on how the Park District was going to handle all of this new growth within the community. So ordinances were drafted and changed regarding that park impact, the amount of land we would receive when those developments came in, the cash in lieu process that was developed. So that was really the focus. So as we sat down with city staff this time, we realized that the Park District was really lacking an internal master plan of our own. So the Park Board last month approved the process to start researching to do our own master plan in conjunction while the city is updating the comp plan. Our process will be about a 6 to 7 month process. We will have a firm come in. They will do an inventory of our existing facilities, programs, policies. They'll take public input. They'll discuss with all of our user groups how things are going. We'll do a needs assessment, and finally, we'll do our own roadmap very specific to Parks and Recreation on goals and objectives and how that fits into the city comp plan. It's been over 20 years since the Park District has done something like this, so long overdue.
Public hearing.
We have
If there's
seen,
anyone else that
just
wishes
like
to come
you,
forward,
tremendous growth
state your name,
in the amount of facilities and the amount of programs.
concerns, or if you have any
the
comments.
taxing effects that that's had on the Park District. So I think the timing is
Tracy
really
Tews,
good for us
representing
to do
Liquor
this and
Warehouse
tie it in
and Southfield Liquors
with their comp
TH
plan.
Investments.
As Stephen said, we have a great working
Mr.
relationship with the
Valesky
city
and Mr.
the
Paul
city
and
staff.
Staudinger did a lot of the heavy
things we
lifting.
do jointly, such as the
Just going to mention a
the
few
trails
things.
and some of our
I've been a
projects.
liquor
We work
license
very
holder
closely
since
together.
2002.
So,
A
with
lot
that,
of
I'd be happy
these
to answer any
ordinances
questions if there
predate
are
me.
specific questions regarding
So I
what
agree with
Stephen
Mr.
has
Decker. They
handed
were
out.
limited before I even
That's
got to
where,
the show.
That's where the Park District
And
is
that
at
is
with-
what
with our master
changed
plan and
the
how we
value
hope
of
that
a
will
lot of
help
licenses
ultimately
going
the
forward.
city's plan as well.
I agree with if this goes forward that
Boom, did you guys take
the
on
fee should be
parcels of land
more
that
substantial
you
than
don't
what
see
you're talking.
fees for now, that you-
Adding any
Get them now at
license
some-
So we
is
actually had
kinda
a fair
prohibitive
amount of
with
land
what
prior
you guys
to
have been doing the
boom
last
that
20
we
some years
had
that I've
were
owned
undeveloped.
licenses. So
Approximately
it is
11
gonna
different
devalue
areas around town.
every business venture that
and after
we've
some
entered
legal review and
to
working
have
with the
liquor.
state, we found that
One of the things
only
that
way the Park District can
I
dispose
was
of land
really
is if it
concerned
is
about,
physically
which is
deeded
still a
to
concern,
the Park District.
is a different
Back-
policing issue.
Back in the early days
According
when
to your
when land was
ordinance,
developed with the city,
how
it was
people
actually
shop,
dedicated
such
and not
as Staudinger
deeded
had
to the
mentioned,
Park District.
and
So
how
a lot of our
people
parks
store
are
alcohol
actually owned
in
by the
other
city, or
stores.
they are
There's
just
still
dedicated
3
through
stores
the plat
that don't even
process.
comply to your
Those we
ordinance
can't
in
dispose
Dickinson.
of. But
And
anything that
we've
is
turned them
deeded
in,
to the
we've
Park
talked
District,
about
we
it.
can.
We
And
talked
we have
about
had
it
those
with the blue
conversations
laws,
with the city as well as how we can work
and
better
they didn't
together.
comply
to-
for years.
Maybe the Park District could utilize some
And
undeveloped city land,
compliance
and maybe
never
we have
happened.
land that would benefit you.
So policing of the ordinance that you have now isn't happening.
Does anybody have any questions?
It's absolutely not happening on a daily basis, and you're going to add 19 more licenses. So I have no faith that if you would add any licenses,
We actually maintain the
that
vast majority of
policing
the
could be
deeded
done.
city parks.
There is a
Prairie
very strict
Outpost,
way on how we have to store liquor,
I can't think of any
on how
others.
people
We-
can
we're
come in
doing
and shop
downtown
it,
right now.
and it's not
the
happening.
Boulevard,
Square.
On 3 of your
Centennial.
Square
locations.
eventually.
Yeah.
So,
So the
um,
dedicated
the other
properties,
thing
there's
is
a lot of that that's
proximity
unused
to other
that
stores.
you guys can't dispose of?
Most
If
of the dedicated
we
property
have another
is,
ordinance that's beer,
is in
wine,
use.
or
I'll
just
give you one
beer,
example
there could
across
be
from,
stores 100 feet
Century
apart.
Apartments. That little plat
One of my
right there.
locations is
Kostecki
literally
did the original
75
development
feet
back in
from
the
a
early
convenience
80s.
store.
It was a dedicated parcel
So
for a park.
convenience
We never developed
of-
it because
I
we
got my
had
fishing pole and
a
I'm
park
going
2
fishing.
blocks away, and then we jointly with
convenience
the
is
school
already
district
there in
did one at the
Dickinson.
new school. There,
It's
that
at
property sits
4
undeveloped, but
ends
it's
of
a
the town,
dedicated piece.
north,
and
south,
we
east,
can't
west.
dispose of it.
I don't buy that for a moment. I own a store in Bowman, I own a store in Mandan. We've had these conversations.
All right. Anyone else have a question?
That's a moot point. There's ways to get liquor licenses. There's 3 liquor licenses for sale right now that I know of.
Yeah, we can
If they
use
want
it
a
in
liquor
any
license,
way
they can buy
that
one.
fits our recreational
They could even
purpose
petition
and
the city
obviously meets
to
city
bid for another one.
plans and ordinances,
So-
yes.
Not being available and not having entry to the market, that's just
Yeah.
false. So, proximity is a big factor, I think, on a couple points that Mr. Paul brought up. Our
Yeah.
population
It-
and having the
it
amount
feels
of
like it's
places.
just a perfect
I can go get an
extension
eye
of some
exam and have a
residential
beer
lots.
in
It really does.
Dickinson. I don't know where you can do that, any other city. So
Mr.
I
Chairman,
think getting
and
alcohol
James,
in
I think
Dickinson
that,
is not a problem.
You know, we will want you highly involved. Obviously,
I'll
you're
take any
doing master
questions.
planning around Patterson Lake. The city has
Any
a
questions
big
for Mr.
interest
Hughes?
in doing some aeration and dredging and getting
Hughes, I
that
do
to
have one,
year-round
like, you can
use
provide me
and
the
secondary water sources
three
where we
businesses
could
I'm sure
actually.
you-
Absolutely.
probably,
Family Fare
We're still tied to
has a
that. but we
door
could tie
that
into
you
some
can
federal
enter
money to
right into the
to try to
grocery
make
store.
that happened. There
so
is
you
a,
could buy
if you want to
liquor
look up
and
Mitchell,
enter
South
right into the
Dakota,
grocery store.
there's a
It's unmonitored.
Mitchell, South Dakota is
It
doing a
happens all the time.
project very similar to what we
They
need
also
to
didn't
do
comply with their blue
Patterson Lake.
laws
It's about
for,
a $22
I don't know how many
million
years we turned them in,
project
3 years.
last
They
time
were
I
opening
talked
at
to
8
them,
o'clock on Sunday for,
down there, but
when they opened.
they have
Never
similar,
did
very
they get shut
similar
down.
problems. It's a little warmer there, so they
Walmart's storage
it's a little
room
worse.
is combined with their storage room in
But,
back.
you know, if
Can't
we
have
could
it.
make that
So is
into
Cashwise.
something that was a year-round use.
They unload
and
liquor the same
just
place
the
they
fact
unload
that we have
milk.
a secondary water supply that would be usable.
We all have made a substantial investment to separate those
Go
factors,
after some federal funding.
that
at
it's
some
not
point in time.
happening
We already
now.
tried once, but we
and I
didn't
get
in
told
the
that,
door,
well,
so.
they're corporate, we don't know who to
Anyway,
talk
we
to.
appreciate your help.
Yep, and as you know, we're
I'm a
now the
corporation.
owners of that property,
Yes,
and we
fine
really
me.
hope to enhance it.
Two
Just an
Sweeney
update on the
Bagels
lot
and
sales, 32
We've
of
made
the
'em right
42
to
have
Siana
sold, have closed. There's
for
10
years.
left to complete.
And the Family
I'm
Fair one was
expecting
finally
half of those 10
addressed.
have no interest in purchasing, so we're really close to
2019?
being at the end of that
So if you made
process.
those reports to Captain Siani, there'd be
There
a
were
police
just a couple
report.
things. Well, first of all,
I don't
before I
don't
ask
know
this
how he
question of Mr. Kramer,
handled them.
I know that since one of
I
the
have
things
personally
that
called on him too.
I should mention.
So is my
and it
liquor
is a
store
policy
manager and
in
my
here,
partner,
is
Scott Klug.
The Parks and Recreation Department does do a regular assessment of
Thank you.
community needs.
But how long ago did this happen?
And you can see that by the fact that the expansion
Cashwise and
that they've had at their facilities. They've expanded the
I mean,
West
we just
River
stopped
facility. They've
calling.
expanded the
It's-
community
Well, I have a hard
center.
time
They've
believing that these
expanded,
issues weren't
they've
addressed.
expanded the, the pool.
Well, I was just
Um,
in
and
Cashwise
I'm guessing these are all highly
2 weeks ago
utilized, even
look
with
at a water leak.
your expansions. Since,
there was
my
milk.
question is this, is since
There
the
was blood
time that the
right beside
comprehensive
it.
plan was adopted, do you know how
We
much?
normally don't
has
search
been-
storage
How
rooms.
much,
You understand
I understand.
how much
That's not a
has been
normal
added in
process, what
terms
we-
of.
But in my
funds,
stores,
you know,
there
for the
has been.
community?
By
Just
who?
approximately, I
When
think it's
they
been a
came and did
fair,
their site visits
it's been a fair
and when
amount.
we proposed
Yeah, it has
maps on
been,
how to
and I would
deliver
say
beer
the
to the
bulk of
back
that has
door.
been tied to road construction that the
Prior
city
to operation,
and some of the
correct.
state
Correct.
projects have done.
Not during operation.
Correct.
Most of that along State Avenue
Yep.
going north over to the middle school.
Mr. Tews,
The West
Yeah.
Business Loop,
So
some of those, but a fair amount
I
of
share
lengthy
your
trail and
thoughts
really good
on,
connectivity.
hey, I can,
As far as our
and
internal
get my
trails,
haircut, I
I
can
can't
get
think
beer.
of any new additional loops or anything that
but
we've done. We
I
just
guess
did a
I would
major,
look at it from a
renovation and
different
a
standpoint there,
overseal
perhaps.
of all of ours,
It
so
is, if I can go get my
maintenance side of
haircut
that obviously is a big
and
deal.
get a beer.
But you're right, there has
Why can't
been
I
a
go fill up
lot
my
of
car with gas
new trail
and get a
work
beer?
as well as, since the comp plan,
You
our
most certainly can.
major addition at the ice rink, the community center.
You're right.
Those were all
You're-
part of the
that's
comp plan
that's a
and
fair
have been
that's
as well.
a fair response.
And you can in other
This is-
communities.
These are
It's
the kind
just
of
done
amenities
differently
that
than
not
what
only
this
serve the people
ordinance
who
is
live
laying out.
here,
So how's
but
the
when
one
you're
in
trying to
Mandan? You own
attract.
So
people
Mandan,
here,
we
new businesses
basically,
here,
and
those are
you'd
the
have
kinds
to
of
talk
amenities that they
to our
look
manager
at,
there.
that they look at too.
We basically
At
had
least
to
that's
buy a
been my
Class A
experience.
license. Because our
Yeah,
license.
I agree, quality
is
of
just
life,
like a
I
Class
mean,
A
that's what it's
license.
all about.
Sounds like we
There might
finally
be
have some
another
traction
name
on
for
the
it, but we
extension of
sell
Pacific Crane,
everything
so
there.
with the railroad.
And
Yep.
our
I'm
entrances, our
excited to
storage,
Get that moving forward.
everything that we have there is real
Fingers
similar
crossed,
to how it's kind of laid out in Dickinson's ordinances. And
Most
in
headway
Bowman's the same
on the
way.
last few months that we have the whole entire time, so I'm really excited for us to
I think
keep
you did
moving
mention, because you are
forward.
right, there are some places that
Great.
it's just
I'll
a
keep you
door
posted as I know more.
Okay.
in the same location.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Separate
Appreciate
door.
your
It's not-
time.
I mean, it's not an entrance. You can buy,
Anyone
the
else
beer
have
in
any
the
comments regarding
convenience
this?
store, right, just like you're buying a soda.
So in Mandan, we had to put the entrance to the outside as well.
Anything to say?
You
kinda
cannot
look like
buy
you're about to get up, so.
I
in
forgot
the
about-
east side of the
I
store
forgot about Bob.
and
So-
take it into the community.
Sorry, Bob. So Bob is staff.
Such as,
Mr.
I
Furman
think
is
Cashwise
staff
is a
to
pretty
the-
good example. You
is
know, they have
to-
the whole
to the,
front door that you
to the
can walk
Historic
out
Preservation Commission.
and go out. I
And
mean,
as we
sure,
talked
they
about
say
before, one of the
same
one of the
vestibule
poli-
is
some
the
of
same, but
policies here year had to
they're
do with
technically not supposed to come out of cash
establishing
wise
an inventory of historic
and
places.
going to the other store.
And Mr. Furman's going to go ahead and address that. We may need
Did I
to
say
look
that right,
at
Dustin?
possibly changing these policies, the way that they're written to more adequately reflect, what the city's practices are and what we have available.
Thank you, Steve. Bob Furman, Dickinson City Historic Preservationist. Convenience store. One of the things about Historic Preservation Commission, it unfortunately laid dormant
Hey, those
for
other three did do some heavy
pretty
lifting, but you made some good points.
significant amount of time.
Thanks, Jim.
But I'm really happy to report that we
So
feel
for the
we've
commission,
revitalized things over
we've
the
heard a
last several
couple
years.
comments, and there'll be some more.
It's
City
exclusive
Commission supported our
off-sale
request
beer
to
and liquor
grow
from
the
gas station.
board
But
of
it is not a Class
Historic
A.
Preservation Commission.
Go the
So
technical term on it.
we What- basically can hit a quorum every month now. You don't when mind we sharing meet, with us? What was your which is license great. there? And also brought in some
I can tell
talented
you.
people who fit the needs that are outlined by the State
It
Historical
was,
Society.
it was,
Historic
I
Preservation
think it was
Commission,
around
membership.
40,000, if I recall.
The
That was in 2009.
strategic plan that's
Mike
being
showed
reviewed,
you said it was
chapter
$80,000.
9,
Excuse
items
me, and that amount was
4.1,
based off of what
4.2, 4.3 specifically
Walmart had paid
are charges to
on
the
their bidding
Historic
process
Preservation
for
Commission.
the same license
And
in Mandan.
they
So
were not
was 39.
fulfilled
It was
heretofore.
Walmart's bid was 80,000.
But I think they're a really
So
good
that's
starting
that's
point
why I had my
for
presentation
developing what
earlier that I didn't go
HPC
over, was I know
can do
that
going forward.
the city of
And so
Dickinson has
I've
been using Mandan
concentrated
as some
particularly on
comparisons
those
because of
three
the same
items
size population.
and have this
But
to offer on
Mandan's
them.
liquor license.
4.1 is
$80,000
the city should maintain an inventory of publicly owned cultural and historic resources. I have not found such an inventory in the files of HPC. However, I feel that completing that inventory is not going to be a
It's come up a
complicated
few times,
project.
but the intent. would be the
Obviously,
same
I
for
think
the
everybody
permit,
thinks right
for
offhand
delineation.
is
It would be
we're
for
talking
the-
about buildings, but
as we've talked
have
about,
to remember they're
as
talking
with
about
Lucky,
city-owned cultural
if-
and historic
if this body
resources.
granted that,
And I'll
it
get
would be
back
the
to what
same,
that impacts in a
delineation.
moment when I talk about the cultural resource survey.
like your story.
But just want to
Mandan's, it
let
is
you
the
know that
Class
we're
A
not
license,
necessarily
which is
talking about
the
only
same
buildings in that.
Yeah,
Which
Class
is
B
what-
exclusive.
4.2, HPC should seek funding to update its inventory of all historic properties in the city. That's a really great idea. The initial inventory really goes back to the 1983 Cultural Resources Survey that was sponsored by the State Historical Society. That survey identifies several structures and sites within primarily the original plat of the city of Dickinson as
President
historic,
Decker and Commissioners,
as possible
I'm Bernie Marsh. I'm with the
contributory
Escort Club downtown since
historic
1987, which
sites or
is
structures
probably
for
33 years.
potential historic district or
I was planning on
standalone
talking tonight, but a few things came up, and I just
designation.
thought I would
And we
come up
have
here. A little history
local
before I
level
get into it,
work
as far as the
to
restaurants and music and
revive
gaming
the
goes.
local landmark
Back when the Queen
program
City
and
Club
have,
closed,
just recently,
and Frank
in
Hartwick
fact,
was running it,
designated
and he was
the
running
City
it
Hall
as
complex
a
buildings, all as
venue
historic.
for weddings and stuff.
So
Well, he couldn't even do the
there's
weddings
work
'cause of
going
the
on
music.
there, and that all really
So he
follows
came
on
to
from
the city
83
and asked if he could
Cultural
either have
Resource
music,
Survey.
he wanted music
Every
and
one of the,
gambling. And the city came out to
structures
the liquor
within
license
the
holders
original
and
town
asked them
plat
if we would give
was
them one, which would
looked
you like him to
documented
have.
by
We said,
a firm that was
give them
contracted by
music
the
so we
State
can do
Historical
weddings and stuff like
Society,
that. And
photographic
so I don't know if there's
record,
ever changed
what
that
have you,
restaurants could have
and
gambling.
evaluation was made for each
forgotten.
one,
That's
was
the
it
way that
historic or not.
history was as far as
1983 is a long
restaurants
time
and
ago.
music.
We need to
I do
look at
have a
updating
question on
that,
transfers. So how is that going
survey,
to work
that
now?
83
Because
survey.
if I
And I
understand,
think there's 4 steps that can help us do that. And this
when
is
the
what
city was
I would
redoing
like to
ordinances a
recommend.
while back,
We do at the
transfers,
Historic Preservation.
the last 2
Commission,
licenses
as
that
we
were
look at
sold, I think, by
adopting
bid,
recommendations.
were supposed to come back to the city.
For the new
If those
comprehensive
businesses ever
strategic
sold,
plan.
where all the other ones
One
that
is to
could be
review
sold
all
and
those
transferred
1983
with the-
property
with the business.
forms. The,
So I don't know how that
structures,
is.
We
or if
need
that-
to confirm that they still
you know,
exist.
I don't
Some
know
of them are
that to be
gone.
true.
Or note significant changes that may affect their historic significance.
The last 2 that.
Also, identify properties which were not considered historic in
able to
1983, the
I don't know if that ever got
status of which may have changed
Well,
due
I
to
mean,
subsequent
I mean,
events.
I
or
I'm
the
pretty sure it was
passage of
voted on,
time.
and I was sitting in the
Pretty
meeting
much
room
what
that
the
day, so.
That's before I was on the
contracted
commission,
firm
but I
did
was
was
a liquor
use
license holder back then. So.
Right.
the loose National Register type criteria.
Anyway, if
for
that would be the
historic sites.
case, then
If the structure wasn't,
if you do
or the
approve
site
these new
significance,
off sales,
wasn't
maybe you
50
can
years
include
old,
that in as
wasn't
if they ever sell the
historically
business, that the
significant,
people,
doesn't qualify.
licenses come
Well,
back to the city, and
several
the
years
people
have
can come
passed
back
since then,
and
and
purchase it
several,
again from the city.
structures
That's-
that I now consider
You know,
historic
Mr.
were
Marsh, I mean,
deemed non-historic contributory structures at that time.
I think that's
So we'd want to
that's a
go
good
through,
idea, and
we
that's
should go
actually one of
through and look at
the
each one
things
of
that
those
I've been
forms
most
and make that
concerned about
judgment
is,
and update them, what have you.
The level
Also,
of
I had mentioned earlier that
investment
we weren't talking
that
just about structure.
Anybody that has
The other
to,
thing in the
has
cultural
to make in
resources
order to get
survey
like a Class A
is the
license in
archaeological
Dickinson right now,
side of it.
is
And we would need to
prohibitive
double
like,
check
entering that marketplace.
on all of those sites.
Let's say you've got a really good
which are all
business
mapped
plan,
out,
but you don't have
to make sure that
a
anything
quarter to a half a
archaeological
million
doesn't fall
dollars to-
onto a city or a publicly
buy
owned
a
piece of
liquor
land.
license in Dickinson. I mean,
If we do, we need to make sure that it gets
so
on that
that's why I'm
survey or
saying, like,
the inventory,
Mr.
excuse me,
Paul
which I
and Mr.
referred to
Lesky
in
and all you guys,
4.1.
I'm empathetic to where you're coming from because
Also,
the value of those is
review the
You
original
stated them as being
1983
inflated,
survey's final
but they're
report
inflated because the
narrative.
people that owned them
So
put
it's a
in their
really
sweat,
good
their
narrative.
tears, and their
It
blood,
was
sweat
a
equity
terrific
and
tool
everything
for me
else. I
coming to
mean,
Dickinson
that,
5
there's a
years
value
ago
there that.
to learn
yeah, the
something
market,
about
well,
the
yeah,
replaced environment in
the market
city.
dictates that
But
because of
again,
the
1983 is a long time ago.
the good job you've
We've
done
been
at the
doing a lot of
Esquire
work
and
over the
things like
last
that.
5 years trying to research the
also
built
scarcity of
environment
resources.
Yes,
in
and
Dickinson.
that- and
And a
that
lot of it
drives
is
that cost up
naturally
because it,
concentrated on the
I mean,
original
it's a-
plat area.
it's kind of
but
an artificially
there's other areas
inflated
that haven't
value
really
because
been
of
looked
the-
at, and we need to
it's a
continue
limited
to do
resource.
that if we are
But if
really
you look,
serious
there's a
about
bar downtown, been
trying
for sale
to
for 3 years.
Make something of our historic resources.
So,
So
but anyway,
we
that,
would
that
wanna
was my
update,
concern was on the transfer because
that
I
final
I'm
report
really
narrative.
99% sure that
research
the
we've
last
done
two
over the
licenses
last
were
5
supposed
years.
to.
And then we want to
where
publish
those
the
businesses ever
results
got out of the business, those
inventory
licenses were supposed to
update,
go back to the city. And
the
I thought
forms
maybe
and
that
the
would work this
narratives.
way
And
for
we
the
want to
house sales too.
publish that via the Historic
questions?
Preservation page on the Museum Center's website, and we would also share it with the State Historical
Okay, thank
Society
you
so
for
it
your time.
becomes part of the permanent record that they hold of Dickinson's historic resources. 4.3 is the last piece from the last strategic plan. Historic Preservation Commission.
Good evening, President Decker, Commissioners.
Report on the feasibility of
Always a
establishing
challenging
one or more
issue to
historic
talk
districts
about
in the
for
city.
myself, for all of you.
Historic districts
I've got a great deal of respect for
scare
all the
some people.
current
even
license
just
holders who
a historic designation
have
for
testified
structure scares
tonight.
some people, and it's
But
primarily
my name is
owners,
Jared Sheeler.
because
I
they
am
feel it's gonna be a
the
really
CEO and
onerous
managing
thing
partner
to
of the Hub Convenience
meet
Stores.
the criteria and to maintain. They can
we
never
operate
do
two
anything
stores
to
in
their
Dickinson.
property
So I
again.
appreciate the
And such is
opportunity
really not the
to
case.
submit this
And
testimony on
particularly
behalf
when
of the
we're
Hub
talking
Convenience
about
Stores,
possibility of
a
more
Dickinson-based,
historic
locally
districts.
owned and operated convenience
They're
store
probably
chain
not
founded
going
in
to be a contiguous
2015.
district like DSU.
The Hub
DSU
employs
is a
more
nice
than
little
80 people in 4 cities in North
bubble
Dakota,
in Dickinson.
here in Dickinson,
And the
Beulah,
structures within it
Hazen,
primarily
and
all
New
are
England.
historic contributory.
I'm a
But
convenience
we may be
retailer,
looking at if we
and
wanna
I
go
want the
ahead with other
opportunity to
historic
sell beer and
districts
wine in my
in
Dickinson stores.
Looking at non-contiguous.
Laws and ordinances in
Which is
Beulah,
gonna be a little
Hazen,
bit
and
harder
New
to
England
do in some
give us the
ways.
freedom to decide if we
means
want
we're
to
gonna be
sell
looking at
liquor
several
in those
different property
cities.
owners and trying to convince
They are
them
similar to ordinances in the
to
vast majority
buy
of cities
into
and towns in North Dakota
owning
that
a
allow for liquor
historic
sales in convenience
resource
stores.
or a landmark. So the
Further,
suggestion is
if we
that
look at the convenience
that
channel as a whole,
chance to educate the public about
81%
the historic
of all
designations
convenience stores currently
and
sell
also
beer.
consider the establishment maybe
The liquor
first
category in C
of
stores
a
is the
local
norm
historic
across the country, not
district
the exception.
designation. We don't have that. All we have
In
is
fact,
local landmarks,
53% of all packaged
sites
beer
or buildings.
is sold in
But if
convenience
we would
stores.
create a
More
local
so than
historic
grocery or
district
standalone liquor
designation,
stores,
it might be a way
we
of opening the door and
are America's outlet
making
for
people
beer.
kind of understand what that can do
In our
terms of
businesses,
making
we've all asked a
people
team
more
member or
appreciative of our
coworker from time to
historic
time,
resources.
why did you do it that way? And one of the
explaining
most
to-
common
to
yet
them the
agonizing answers
economic,
is, because that's
advantages
the
of
way
having
we've
a
always
historic
done it.
building.
A narrow-minded
when I
perspective
go to
often sees things
city
through a distorted lens.
And I look at real estate listings.
But those who see
I
the
love
forest
ones
through the
when they're able to
trees
come out
and
say,
who see
"No, it's the
truth
local
understand that
historic
the response of "that's
And
the way we always
I know
done
a lot
it"
of people are
is
really jazzed
often
on
quite
old houses
ridiculous.
and such like that. So I think there's
I see
things
this
like
issue
that
no
we can do
differently than what I just
as a
described.
historic preservation commission.
Do I understand the
to
pushback from the existing license
educate
holders?
the public.
If I look
and
from their
hopefully make everyone
perspective,
more
yeah,
aware
I
of our
do.
historic
But does
preservation
doubling down on poor ordinances
commission
from the past
and
make
our
sense?
resources here
No, I
locally.
don't think it does.
So that's initially what we
Just
wanna
because it's
discuss,
always been a
and I
certain
think
way
we will be
doesn't
discussing.
mean it's
Our
the right right way.
person, Mr. Josephson.
For decades,
Over the next several
Dickinson
months,
City-
we'd like
City
to talk
Commission has
about
been strongly
getting those things
influenced by the
going.
liquor
And then
establishment
we
in
need
the
to
city,
really
and I use that
probably
word
from
establishment not so
Step a
lightly.
next step
It's
forward
time
and
to
say,
stand
well,
up for what should
can we
be
do
and not focus
next
on
step from
protecting what
these?
has always been.
Some of these things are
I
going to
challenge
take
the
some
city
time,
commission to stand up for
unless
what
we
you
go
believe
with
in,
outside
what I know you
contractors.
believe in,
I
and make the
think
long
that's a little
overdue change
onerous
to the ordinances.
expense-wise. I think the
Like
ADP
many of the
survey
current
is
license
capable.
holders, and like many of you sitting
Possibly
commissioners, if not all of you, I'm pro-business.
support
I
or
believe in the concept of free
targeted
enterprise
contract
and free market
employees to help us
competition.
On a short-term basis, we could move.
In
that
my
along a
belief, the
little
only
faster.
fundamental
But
responsibility
certainly
that government
what we've been
has to
doing
the
at the
business
museum in
world
terms of
is
research
to
and
enact
local
laws that
built
fully enable
environment,
free
we've
market
built up a
competition.
pretty good
After that,
feeling for
get out of the way and let the best
what
business win.
we think the update could
That's
look
what
like.
America's all about.
So that's where we're
and
at
that's what
right now.
consumers want.
And if you have any questions.
But unlike
or
some people on the other
comments or
side of the issue, I'm a free market capitalist all the time.
anything I might be able
I don't
to
adjust
add.
my principles and beliefs based on how things personally affect myself. I'd venture to say that quite a bit of the existing
everybody's
license
thinking
holders
it's all
couldn't
about
look me in the eye
Minnesota,
and tell me they
which
actually
I
believe
consider-
deep
which
down what they're telling
incidentally
you.
actually is going to be
City
delivered
governments
into the lab
or
today.
governments of any
The
kind
lifting
should not
cradle
exist to
has
pick
been
winners and
converted
losers in the
into its
marketplace.
prep cart, so that's gonna
By
be
not
rolled in
amending this
and
license to
begin
reflect
its
what it
2
should
years
be,
worth of
this commission
preparation.
would be doing exactly that.
But I'm the history guy.
Picking
out
winners
there.
and losers.
Denver's the paleo guy. So this
For
is
nearly
the type of
7
thing
years
that
in
kind of falls
Dickinson, the
my
hub has
bailiwick. And
been
we're
chosen
really
as a
excited to
loser
think about the potential,
because of the current ordinances.
that we're seeing,
I
particularly out of
estimate that we've
HBC.
lost upwards of
We've got
$50,000 to
commissioners
$60,000
who
per
are
year in
really excited
profitability
about
because
what
we
we're doing.
haven't sold alcoholic beverages.
All right, thank you, Mr. Furman.
Anyone who
Thank you
believes
very
that is
much.
taken
Yeah,
directly out of the
Jim,
pocket
Bob,
of the
thanks,
existing
Bob.
licensees
We
doesn't
talked about
understand
the
how markets work.
non-contiguous historic
More
district,
purchase
and,
points equal more
I've
purchases
been
on
involved
consumer
with those
goods,
elsewhere,
period.
And once
To those who
we
say
have
they will lose their value on a
tour,
liquor
if you will,
license if ordinances change,
something that we
well,
can
I say we've
provide
lost
to
more
the
than that
public,
since
visitors,
we opened in
whatnot.
2015 by not
Mr.
being able to
Furman's
sell
correct in
liquor.
saying there's a lot of people that follow history.
And for
travel
on-sale
this area.
licensees, I don't think
One
they're
of
going to lose a
my
dime
goals,
in the
to
value
get
of their
to that point,
license.
There is a program. along
I say
interstate
it's not our
system
fault that Dickinson
that
is one of the only
the
cities of
interstate
our
system
size
provides
to combine the
historic district
on-sale and
centers.
off-sale license
If you've ever
from a
seen
Class A
those, so
standpoint.
just
I think that's been the
go
issue from day one.
15 hours one way and 15 hours back.
And that's something that
it's
it's time to fix
a
it.
number of them.
Finally,
And they're
convenience retailers are the
very
experts in age
large, brown,
verification.
Historic district.
We check more IDs every day than
There's no cost to
TSA.
those.
We sell
You just have to
tobacco, it's
establish
21 and up, just like liquor.
The
We
district
sell lottery.
Prove that, go through the process.
This is what we do.
and,
The
those
proposed
are
ordinance,
in your community,
as
outside
written,
of your community. So that it
ensures
does
safety
go out
measures
as
that keep
folks.
alcoholic beverage out of the hands
and
of
you
those who
probably
can't
could
legally
tag a
purchase them,
museum
which is
sign
good
on the
government.
bottom
In
of
fact,
it,
Oh,
there's
we paid for
imagine.
that, though, Walter.
the show relatively
I'm talking
strong.
to
It would be
DOT
hard for
about
us
that.
to enact these in our stores.
So anyway,
It'd be a
it's
heavy
something
lift.
that,
But it's
you know,
the right
Stephen
thing
is
to
the
do
chairman of that group, I'm
because
ex-official.
It
When I
protects
can make it.
underage
I'd
people
love
from
to,
even
for
getting
some
into
reason.
those areas.
And
But-
If we were to do this at the hub,
But.
we'd even take it a step
but it is a
further
very
and require
important part of our
electronic age
community
verification even to
from the
get into
standpoint
the
of it
liquor area.
also Is going to bring people.
So in
here.
closing, it's not about
Give
convenience,
them more to do while they're here.
it's
So
about freedom.
I appreciate Bob's done a
Would
good
the hub
job.
sell alcohol in Dickinson if the ordinance is
I appreciate
changed?
what you say, but really.
Maybe, maybe not.
The great job are the
But like the
people
rest of
who
the
have
convenience
maintained
retailers in the United
historic buildings
States,
in this city.
we want and
This is
deserve
a
the
real
freedom
treat
to
as
make
a
that decision on our own and compete head to head with the existing retailers in Dickinson.
Man, you can't swing a dead cat without.
Thank
hitting
you,
a great
and if
building.
anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Sheila?
I like that thing.
It's on the
Mr.
record.
Sheila.
Very good.
So.
Do you have
for
that
people who
electronic
like
age
cats,
verification at other locations?
You're in
I like
trouble, you're in trouble.
We've enacted it at our
No,
Hazen
just
location,
kidding.
so you need
And
to
I did
scan an
wanna say
ID.
that
Currently, you
as a
need to
member
scan
of
an
the
ID, a
Historic
valid ID, to
Preservation
get
Commission,
inside
it's
for the
great
door
to
to
have
unlock.
Bob as staff
And then
because he
the
really
purchases
loves history
are,
and he loves to
purchasers
talk
are then
about it.
ID'd
And
at
for
the
those
point
of
of
you who
sale.
read the-
So
read the
it's
Heart
a
River Reader,
double point of security
Voice,
there.
rather,
Of
the
course,
Heart
that
River
wouldn't be so
Voice.
much allowed
Yeah, you
in
can
this
see I don't
ordinance
read
if it
it
were to go through because
the Heart River
we would have
Voice
our
is every
ID
month there's something
scanned to
in
get
there
into
that
the
Bob
area,
puts together
though the
about,
cashier would have to be
about
contained
the,
within
the
that
city
area
of
as
Dickinson's
well. So,
history. He's done podcasts.
but there would still be a second
about,
age
about,
age
history
verification,
too,
age
and
verification
relating this
check as
back
well.
to the comprehensive plan and also as
now,
an
you said
amenity is as you develop
$50,000 to $100,000
historic
a
identity
year
of a
since
community.
2012.
It also
That's the estimated loss.
Since
I have
2015,
seen
I would
it's
say
also developed
50
a
to
sense of
60
a s- a
were
stronger
my
sense of
numbers.
community,
It's pure
too,
conjecture,
which
and it's
also
based
leads
on
to
sales at
staying here and people wanting
other
to move
locations,
here and appreciate
combined with a little bit of industry average as well. It's tough to say. I mean, I could take my daily transaction count and do some math, and
Thank you
that's
very
what I
much.
come up
Thank
with.
you, everyone. All right.
But, it's
We'll move on.
400,000. We talk about $446,000
3.
license. Well, we've lost $446,000 by
Columbia
not having
zoning
this
amendment.
Right.
since we've opened.
Chairman Friedrich,
And then,
Commissioners,
it's
we have
come up a couple
representatives
times
here
tonight.
from it's Stevenson.
Right now, we're
Stevenson
discussing a
Funeral Home and
beer
also
wine
from
on-off
Highlands
sale.
Engineering.
Sorry, off
They
sale.
want to propose a zoning text amendment for
How would you
regarding
feel about beer
columbarium,
only?
to allow
The question I would
it
come
in
back
the
with is
commercial
why?
zoning district.
I mean,
They wish
I can
to-
see it as a nice
Stevenson
compromise from
wishes
your
to-
standpoint.
to have an
I know
outdoor
you
one
guys are all
at
pro-business.
their on their premises
and
of their funeral
you want
services
everybody to win,
facility.
and really, that's the way it ought to
And I will
be.
leave it
So
up
I think
to-
that, that's
to
a,
them to
and
come and they have a
I've
PowerPoint
sensed that as an
presentation.
acceptable compromise
They
on
can
your guys'
explain
end,
what
and I
they-
understand that.
more about this
But
and
my
also
question would be
about
why?
the proposed
I mean, what
tax.
should it be? What ought it be if this was a new municipality from the beginning and we were creating ordinances?
Chairperson
What
Frederick,
ought they be?
members of the commission,
And
my name is Matt
regardless of what
Stevenson
has been, that's
from
what needs to,
Stevenson
that's what
Funeral Home.
ought to be in the future.
And
Kenzie Robertson from Highlands Engineering.
so I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to come and work through this a little bit, see what
Any other
questions or opportunities you may have through this project. But what we're seeking is a zoning text amendment that's
Thank you.
going to allow us to establish a
Mr. President, I just wanna
columbarium
make a comment
on our
for the public
property
record.
at the
Mr.
funeral
Marsh's
home.
comment about a transfer
And
of
a
license.
little bit of background for
Currently
you
in
guys
our-
on the
our
next
ordinance
slide,
under section
just to show you
408,
kind of how we
210,
arrived at this
that
portion of
provision would
things.
remain in any ordinance. We didn't change that. So a qualified applicant could come before the Board of Commissioners and request a transfer of a license from that business if it was sold.
On the two new ones, or just generally?
On any.
Any.
So I guess as we battle with the technology a little bit on this, part of what we've seen, I guess, across the country is the rise in cremation rates.
I don't believe that's what
The national cremation
Well,
rate
we'll
has
just
moved
hang on,
over
Mr.
50%
Marshall.
over the last couple of years and
then you
continues
can
to climb.
address the commission again.
The state of North Dakota is not
Mayor
immune
Decker,
to that in
commissioners,
the fact that
my
we
name
see
is Rosie
cremation
Lance.
continuing in an
My
upward
husband George
trend,
and I have run Rosie's
becoming
Food
more
and
and more
Gas here in
popular
Dickinson
every year.
for
And
29
so,
years.
as we see
is-
this, we're seeing changes
In
in
that time,
what families
our
are
business
asking of
offerings
us
have
and what
changed
they're
to meet our
requiring.
customers'
And
requests.
so families that come
However,
in and
we have been
they're
unable
choosing
to do the
cremation,
one
a
request
lot of times
off
they're
sale
seeking
beer.
a
It
less
is for
than
this reason I'm
traditional
in
means
favor of
of
the
having
proposed changes
service or
to
having an
alcohol sales
opportunity to
regulations,
celebrate the
as it will
the
help
life of their
Dickinson
loved
move
one.
forward in
And
business
so,
and help us
we
to
have
better
seen
serve our
the
customers.
use of the mausoleum increase in Dickinson,
Any
but
questions?
primarily the niches that are on the north side of the mausoleum. So a little bit of relevant background is the mausoleum that was established in Dickinson
So I was telling
was
the youth
around the
commission last night that this
mid-90s.
always happens.
And
Any
on the
questions,
north
and
side of
everybody
that,
turns towards me.
they established 144
Mrs. Lamb,
niches, which are
would you have
smaller
any type of,
individual areas that
estimate,
were able to
ballpark,
place
like
cremated
Mr.
remains.
Sheeler had in regards to
As you
potential
see
loss?
on here, from that
We
mid-90s
get
to about
requests
2015,
in the summertime,
about
at
50% of
least
those were
a
used.
couple times a week, sometimes more
From
than
that
that.
point
I'm
forward,
there in the
we've seen that
mornings,
rate increase
the afternoon and
incrementally,
evening is
or excuse me,
different.
very, very
You know,
rapidly.
I'm not
And
there
so,
24/7,
over the last
but,
5 years or
there have
so,
been a lot of requests
we've
for it.
utilized the remaining
29 years
50%
of
that.
being there,
And so,
how can
currently,
I say,
as
when
an
we had
opportunity for the
Frontier
families we're
Liquor
serving,
across the street,
there are no
was
niches
easy, I could
available
say,
in Dickinson.
across the street.
And so,
Since then,
it's something that's
it has
readily needed.
increased,
We've had several
and
requests that we've had to tell
this is
families
where we're
that
at.
there is no opportunity for that.
Mrs. Lance,
I know there are
Yes.
plans with
What kind of
the
investment
city
would you be willing to make?
expand
this
the
available?
mausoleum and add more
I mean,
niches
you're
down
probably
the road.
talking,
But that is a
if we say
a ways down the
50,000 or
road.
40,000 for the
And
license,
so
then,
the
I don't
reason
know, maybe
we're,
another 30,
I guess, moving
40,000
forward
to
this in a
remodel,
more
get your
needed
place
manner is because
ready to go
it's
to meet
needed
the
by the
requirements we
families
would
we're
be
serving.
talking about? Is that
As
something?
far-
And so
as far as that goes, I guess I'd
we
have to
are
wait for the bottom
proposing
line.
that we have
Do I
this
want to
available.
turn my whole store into a beer wine store? No.
So again,
would I
we
like
touched
it
on
to
a few
be
things, the
offered
lack of
to my
available
customers?
niches.
Definitely.
The community is seeking this.
As far as the rules and price,
the other thing we've looked
we'll have
into
to wait
some
and see.
relevant background.
Is where
We've
I'm
talked
at
to some of
today.
the churches
I mean,
and clergy
might
in
not-
town
it
to
might be even
see
something
if
once
this is
people
something
in
that
favor,
would be acceptable or approved
because of the cost that went.
Would I spend
by them
the Class
or
A
by the
price?
church themselves. And so
I was
their
actually,
biggest
Daryl, when he sold
advocate
across
for
the
this is
street,
to
he
have a
offered me,
respectable
he called me,
place
you want my
to
liquor
place the
license?
cremains.
And I'm going, I don't want a
Some
liquor store.
other challenges that
Beer
they
I'd
face
want,
within the
but
varying
not the
religious
whole
items
line
is
that you have.
what happens to
So,
those
I mean,
cremains once
years ago I
cremation
was
takes
offered
place.
it,
And so
and I
whether
was
it's
going,
burial or placement into
but
a
did I know the
columbarium
impact it would
such
have
as
on
this,
me now,
they're very supportive
back when he
of
closed
that.
his doors? No.
I guess,
So
Kinsey, maybe
would
if
you
wanna
say say that since that liquor store is closed?
Yeah, so
Less people
earlier
stop
this
at the
year,
gas
Nick reached
station?
out to us about the idea of potentially putting a columbarium on their property.
I always tell people
We
if they
looked
stop,
into
they're
the
lost.
zoning
Usually
text.
asking
and
for direction.
Obviously, nothing in there
Um,
really addresses
but, yeah, it
columbarium
has
outside of the
impact.
cemetery.
Because when
We
they
started
open
looking
their
around
doors
at
at 9
other
o'clock,
municipalities.
there was
and
somebody there all the
municipal
time.
codes in the
They'd
area.
swing around
And
into our location,
so
get what they
specifically
wanted.
Minot, Bismarck, and Fargo, all allow.
All of them? No, but after they have the
Columbaria
bottle, they
in their code. So we reached out with the planning staff as well and started drafting something.
Any other
Put
questions
something
from the
together
board?
and then submitted it to
Thank
them
you.
for their review. They made their comments and then here we are. In that text that we have submitted, it would allow for outdoor columbaria in commercial,
You only get one
primary,
chance.
or actually,
I'm just kidding.
only general service buildings, and then indoor and outdoor.
You're always picking
for
on me,
churches as
Jason.
well.
Mayor Decker and city commissioners, I would just like to make a couple more comments. And as to that conversation that John had with Bernie on
Our proposed
who
plan
really
would
profits
be to
on
place the
on the
columbaria on our
licenses
existing site.
being
Through this plan, we would
evaluated so high.
establish a large
The
protective
smartest ones in the room
wall for
were the
privacy and
forefathers that
sound
set this up, because they
then
just
create
sold 2
more of a
licenses, like I said,
memorial
for
garden
$633,000.
that would take place
They did
in
well.
the natural boundaries
And
with the
going
wall.
forward, you'll make another
The other two
185,
sides are
unless
existing
it
building,
gets all
and
broken
then
down.
developing the
And
area
in
for the
reference to
columbaria
Mr. Sheeler's
on our
comments,
property.
if he's losing so much money, he could have, there's 3 licenses for
So
sale.
the
I don't
other
believe we have to
benefit this,
change
obviously, would be
Dickinson's
keeping
code and laws
everything
that's
in a
been there for
similar
50
location.
years.
So it
Because
does
he
provide
wants to sell
families that-
beer.
that wanted
He
to
can go
have
buy a license.
service
He
in
could have back in
chapel,
15, and he could have made all that profit.
The committal at the columbaria and the lunch following,
That's all
keeping
I got,
everything
Jason.
on one site. So it does provide a convenience factor
Mr.
for
Marsh, you had a comment.
the families we serve as well. The other thing we tried to do with some of the proposed planning is just as we talked with, or excuse me, listened to Mr. Kramer.
I guess I couldn't
talk about
hear what
Park
was
and
being
Rec
said
Center,
about the
Trail
transfer.
plan. We talked
Mr.
about the
Winningham was
revitalization of downtown.
referring
and
to it.
tie some of that
The
in there
transfer
with the lamp
in the-
posts and with
is in
the
the
large
ordinance. It's not
walkway.
gonna be
And
changed.
Oh, okay.
some
There's
of the new
provision
trails that have been
that a,
established
uh,
are kind of
license
along
owner,
that business
a-
loop
a
that
qualified
could
applicant
potentially one day
Right.
tie into this.
But I just thought that the
So,
last 2 that were
those are all
bid
considerations
out
that we
were
made in
to come back to the
looking
city
into
if
this project.
they, well, I mean, it doesn't make me any difference. I mean, as long as we can
That
still
is
transfer.
what we have to
I guess the only
start
other
with.
comment I have to say is
We're open for any
it's a balancing
questions,
act,
comments,
and, you know,
concerns that
once,
may
once
have.
you open Pandora's box, you can't close it.
Spots would you guys have?
120?
Thank you.
Pardon?
How many niches are in that?
Yeah, I think this one looked at 180. I don't know that this is the exact number that we would have on each
Anyone
one, but
else-
that's about what we'd be
excuse me,
looking at.
anyone
for
else have
phase
any
one.
comments?
I was gonna say, there's a room for expansion to.
Yeah, so
at least
we would
double that.
position it so that we could add more if necessary.
Seeing no one else has any
I've
comments,
had
we'll
many
close the
ideas in
public
the
hearing.
past that weren't always the best, and so I didn't want to get ahead of myself if this was one of those.
I think, commissioners, there a lot of issues and ideas that came forth this evening.
We talked about putting some hedges
Yeah.
and various greenery along
To,
there. Obviously, because of
guess,
the elevation
think about
change of where the road is at, there's no way of blocking that
recommendation-wise
out
would go.
per se. And so the
And
hope is
I
with
guess
that
I'm
wall
open
running
to
all the way to the end of our property
suggestions.
line, that would alleviate some of that noise.
Fees, if we do go
and-
forward.
In the zoning text, we have some requirements for screening to prevent any.
We don't
anyone
go
basically
forward with it.
seeing out or seeing in.
I think a good compromise would be just beer only.
Ideally, to have a cemetery
And-
or a columbarium, it would be nice to have it in a peaceful countryside place where no
Setting
one's
the
bothering
value
you.
too,
But
I think it
realistically,
should
even
be
the cemetery,
one of those
St.
parameters
Wenceslaus
that
and
we
St. Patrick's,
establish
we're right up
already,
against
so
the
people
interstate.
going forward
And even
would
with
know
trees, there's
what
still
that
always some type of
license would
road
cost.
noise that comes by. But that
Mr.
is definitely
President,
something we've considered to make sure we can do something there.
Any questions? Lost the train of thought there.
At this point, like, I would be just.
The
for
question I
Correct.
have is.
Yes, and a little background on that. We did look
do we
into, obviously,
give
the
additional,
Department of Health, getting this
guidance to
established
city
as a
staff?
place with the state.
Or would we make a
They
motion
reviewed it
with
with
that
the AG's
addendum to
office as
the
well. And part of what it
amendments?
looks as is human remains.
I personally would like
have a means of disposition.
to hash
And
out
so once they're
whatever
buried,
details there
that means
are,
of disposition
and
ends,
then actually put
or
it
when
in
they're
writing
cremated.
so that the general
And so,
public can see it
therefore,
before we
cremated
ever
remains
take
are no
any vote.
longer viewed
Now,
as
I know
human
that's
remains.
not Mr.
Therefore, that
Whittingham's
gives us
favorite
the
thing to
opportunity
hear,
when families choose to
table
take the
this,
remains
but
with them,
I do
or
think
to put the
an
remains
issue as
into a
important as this
columbarium,
is something that we need
so
to
it
hammer
doesn't
out
fall under the
the
same
fine details
guidelines
and
like
put in
a
writing so that
cemetery
they,
or a human
the general
remains.
public can see all those details. Now, the actual fee, we need to
Mr.
talk
Chairman,
about
if I
because
could
that'll go into the
jump
fee
in.
schedule discussion.
The reason
road.
that they're presenting to
and
you,
I-
not an application, is
I
to
really-
amend the code.
if we
So
do
what
move
they
forward
want
with
is,
this,
your feedback,
what
your
Mr. Paul brought up
changes,
earlier
your
in regards
ideas
to,
on whether or not this is something that we
um,
want to entertain, and then
basically
their
a
ultimate
period
goal
of
is to
time
have the application
their
come
renewal
through, be it
is,
reviewed,
what
public
Williston
hearing,
did.
Set aside
go through that, and then follow
to
it
help
up
make
with a
up for
special
that,
use permit
whatever,
for the operation on their site. So that, kind of give you in a nutshell, that's why
loss
we're here.
of value,
Could you
whatever
guys maybe, if you
however
wouldn't
wanna
mind,
say
talk
that.
about the challenges that
I
we
mean,
had discussed about
I'm
private property,
sympathetic to
your
that point of view,
longevity
but I
there,
also
so you're there for
have to take into
100 years.
consideration
100 years, it's
the,
not a funeral home, what do we do?
Yeah, we did look into the opportunity, just as all the cemeteries in
valuation
Dickinson,
that
at
we
one
have
point, only the city
created
cemetery was
for
operated by the
past
city.
business-
The rest were
business
managed
owners
by
that
the
have
church.
sold
And,
their and transferred their
over
licenses
time,
and the
due
amount of
to
money they've made
lack
on
of
those
care
sales
or
as a
interest,
result
or
of
however
the
be,
market
the city took
conditions
those
being
over
set.
and took control of those. And so, one thing we looked into
and I
is
know that
making sure that
doesn't
if
help
this
them, 'cause
were
they're current
approved,
license holders.
we would have
But,
the project bonded,
I-
so that in the event that
that's something
Stevenson
that we
Funeral
need to
Home
seriously consider if
was
we
no
do decide
longer
to move forward,
relevant
is,
or was no
doing what we
longer
can to,
taken care of, that it would take care of the
make that right in
expense
some way. We probably
of
can't
transferring
make
the
it,
columbarium, which they're all individual units,
I
they
don't
can
know
all
if
be
make it right
moved
is
to a
the-
different
the-
location,
the
and
right,
therefore moved to a
terminology to
location
use
the
there,
city
'cause,
determined, and properly cared for there.
Yeah, because this is one of those
In
situations where
staff's
you're
review,
not going to be able to
initial
make everybody
review,
happy.
that was my number
if we
one
do decide to move
concern.
forward.
They're much
And if
more
we don't decide to
knowledgeable
move forward, we're not
on
going to make everybody
how
happy.
their
So,
operation works than I will ever be.
but I do think we
appreciate
need to
them
take those things into
looking into
consideration
that.
as well.
50 years from now, if that would
So, I
turn
mean,
into an office building, you
we've
might
got
not want that in your courtyard.
making
Correct.
it beer only. We've got
All right.
the
Any
fees to
questions?
discuss. We've got
I mean, I
any
think-
type of.
I mean, everybody okay with them pursuing?
Make it right actions
so
that
that
we
this-
wanna
there is the
take.
stipulation
And,
that can only be
there's a lot of
on
things
funeral
here.
properties, is that
And then if we do
correct?
this
Did I hear
right,
that
we don't ever
correctly
have
or
to visit
not?
ever again.
Yeah, so the way that it's worded. Funeral property, or funeral services.
I've got
is defined in the code.
a couple issues, and one of them I brought up the last meeting. First of all, we
outdoor
haven't even
property of a
gauged the
funeral service
commission's
building, and then it also allows it for indoor or
interest
outdoor.
in even adding a new
churches,
license
religious
class,
assemblies.
for one. So it puts me in a tough position because if we put this out for first reading, there's a lot of changes in this ordinance that they've worked on that I agree with, but adding the M class, I might not agree with. So I'm gonna vote no on everything
And
instead of
that's
just voting no
possibly
on,
the hope.
I don't think we should
And
add a
again,
class of
we
license.
do have, we show
Second
two
all-
in this
Secondly,
proposed drawing.
we're gonna
How
put a
they're
ton of
positioned,
work
there's a
in if we
possibility
table
of adding
this
4 additional
without that
ones, too.
vote. Force that
So
on
it's just
staff.
Making sure that
Us
we're going down the right path.
discussing what
that-
these
that
parameters
the
are
need
gonna
we're
be
seeing is truly
with the
embraced
chance
by
that
the
it might not pass.
families we're helping. And so just to make sure that we're going down the right path.
Well, then I guess we can always vote.
Mr. Chairman,
President,
I do
you're-
have a question for the applicant. It's probably more of
Mr.
a
Frederick,
personal question than anything.
the way that
I would
to
assume
solve
that,
simplicity of
obviously,
it
this is
is
going to be
you can
located
make
on
multiple
private
motions.
property.
And the way that
And
city
would
attorney
be
has set
accessible
this up
to the
is
public
the
coming
one
on your private
contentious
property at
point
various
can just
times of the day
go away.
to
The rest of the
review and
ordinance stands alone
visit loved ones, and
once
there's,
that
you're
class
not going to
goes
have an
away.
issue or a
It
concern with
doesn't
that?
really affect the total.
Correct.
You
No,
wouldn't
this
have
would
to
be
just say
available
no,
just as
but you
similar
would
to
have to have
the
some,
current mausoleum,
motions and
where
discussions
anyone would be able
between
to
So,
approach in the parking
would the
lot, walk
proper
up the
motion here,
walkway,
Mrs. Winkle,
and have
be to
access to this at any time.
approve the first reading
So it's a fairly
of
safe
Chapter
area.
4
We
amendments,
don't have any direct
with
access
the
as far as
exception
doors into
of
our
Section
facility. And
408,
again, all of the windows
30,
there would be tinted per
subsection
se
M.
to not allow access directly into the building.
Commissioner
to-
Commissioner
that
Norman,
address the
my
concerns?
recommendation is
Just one comment
Let's not
on
get
the
this too
application.
complicated,
When we get
because
to
if we
that
start
point of this,
piecemealing, we're approving
I
this,
would
we're
surely,
approving
from
that,
staff standpoint,
it's gonna get
have a plan
confusing.
that
So
shows you full
I
build-out
think the
of what
reality
you
of the
ultimate-
situation
that you would want
is,
to do, and have that be
to some
approved,
degree,
so
the
we don't have to
simplicity
come
of
back
this is,
gain approval for
I think it
adding
makes
more
sense to
units. So
gauge
we
your
wanna
interest
show-
on whether you're
especially
gonna
use
move
permit
forward
is
with
pretty
license,
specific.
the M-class
You show
license,
what you're
because if
going
you're
to
not,
build, and then you go build
the
it. We're not
public's
gonna make
interest
you
in
put the
these
second
changes is
one in
probably
until
gonna
it's time
dwindle
for
to
you put
nothing.
it in.
So the
But
rest
then
of it
you
is
actually have a plan that you could
management,
follow, and we would know
administrative,
that.
there's
Thank you.
Save you a little time in the
Thing.
future.
So if that is the case and you all,
Everybody okay with having them move forward with?
my changes are gonna be dramatically, gonna
Okay. Sounds good. All right.
think is what
Thank you,
needs to
guys.
come
Thank you.
forward.
Have a good day.
Thank you,
So,
gentlemen. Thanks for being
you know,
patient. All right.
I recommend that
Item.
Andrew's
you
been
just
here for hours.
Last item is our ETZ update.
And we can
Who's gonna
adjust
handle
it
that one?
accordingly.
Mr. Hadley?
That would be me, sir. This comes in
first
front of you, you
reading,
have small
and
printouts.
you do a
We did have a
motion
first
that says
ETZ
you
meeting.
agree with the first reading, except with the
Two of you
exception
attended.
license
I'm
M
gonna
is
take this
coming out,
down.
But license M also
and just put it up
affects
so you can
other provisions
see
of
it,
the
pass it
ordinance.
down.
For example, the number of licenses
I thought,
per-
and you two
per
chime in, I
applicant.
thought it went quite well.
It's
I
going
don't
to
think we
affect
were
some things,
as far
so I just don't want to make it
apart
overly
as
complicated, not
we
only for
initially
you, but for the public.
thought.
So I would recommend
This
it
is
as
a,
possible. And
just a
I
big
think that
version of your
starts
small one
with,
there. You can pass it
are we
down.
gonna create a license
The
or not?
green
And if it is,
line
let's move that forward.
is
and
what
we can
we're
bring that
calling, and we've
forward
got so many
with
colors on
any
here that
other
it's hard to
potential
follow, but
changes,
the green
we
with
can
red
vote on that
dash line
when the time is
is the proposed new boundary based on all of the discussions that were had and the understanding of all the discussions that were had. So we're gonna have
I would-
another meeting
I'd-
here
I'll-
real
I'll-
soon.
just
Sylvia's
so we
going
can
to,
Move along on this.
send out
I'll make a motion
a request
to-
for a
to
meeting.
approve,
We're gonna sit down with the
first
group
reading.
again and talk about.
but I would like to
those
make
boundaries.
that
And I
M
think once we have some sort of concurrence on
Beer
those
only.
boundaries, we
offset.
will move forward,
So we have a motion
And,
by Commissioner Oderman to
make a final proposal for
Approve.
the ETZ.
1733
So
with
this
the
is kind of an
amendment
informational
that
thing.
it be
We use
Class
topography,
M
we use
is
general
beer
areas of growth.
only
We
off
use
sale.
interest of city growth and expansion along the interstate and along Highway 22, including the airport. We did exclude some industrial property to the north, just based on some comments from county staff, that kind of a different industrial park that basically is existing, and it's an option for heavier use industrial uses that really don't want to conform to our exterior overlay standards. So
Mr.
I think we
Winko,
captured
I-
it pretty
I think
well
I do have the
on
authority
there.
to
I mean,
second
if there's,
his motion.
for the folks that were involved, if you see anything that's a
I will
blatant
second
error, tell me, and we can fix it.
Mr.
For
Oderman's
the rest of you, maybe just
motion to
give your
approve
comment.
Chapter
We
4,
have
ordinance 1733.
two members on this board
as beer
that are
only,
involved in this
with
process right
Class
now.
M
so.
as beer only.
Walter, on the Patterson Lake, that does not encompass the west side
Any
of
further
the lake,
discussion?
is that correct?
Questions?
Am I looking at this right? Am I missing-
Patterson is right here, so this is the line,
Oh, I'm on the wrong, okay.
the green line.
There we go, okay. I was looking over to the left.
Hearing none,
It
we'll
was
vote.
intended to, yeah. There's a little bit in that
Mr. Oderman?
southwest
Chair
corner
votes aye.
that we probably, the tributaries that we
Frederick?
probably
No.
could add in there, and I
Mrs.
don't know that anybody
I mean,
would
Ms.
really care.
Walla?
No.
I think the intent
Mrs. Sobola?
was, as we go forward with a Patterson Lake
Motion is
request
denied.
for funding, so we can actually
So,
show a
to
map
that.
that shows that we have jurisdiction
Ms. Winko?
over.
There's a bunch of other
all the
stuff
areas.
tied
So
in
we
with
might-
your revisions
We might
of-
have a discussion on
Yes.
Oh,
expanding
you need to
that
bring this
area a
back
bit,
with that
just
removal,
to
with the
to
Class M
expand
out
some
of
of
it.
those little tributary areas.
We can certainly do that,
aren't in
or
there
what
right
we
now,
can
so,
do is you can move to
that's
approve
the only
the
thing that I
ordinance
see on there
with
that
Class
probably
M
would-
removed,
Would be a
and
discussion item to.
as it would relate to section,
Discussion on the airport, that little sliver is the airport, but I think. it's outside the full mile.
4.08120.
Wants us to put them in
Since
the
it is
ETZ, but
technically
if
A little bit outside the
I think we do
formality.
have it on here as a first reading, if I recall correctly, on the
It
agenda.
is first reading, so
So-
then they would come back with the
I
amendments.
think,
Correct, for the
and
second
Christina just,
So I'd look for a
Christina
motion
wasn't,
with,
Ms. Winkle wasn't invited to
the
the
first
meeting.
motion
The attorneys weren't allowed at
was
this meeting,
denied.
But she will be
Bring
invited
back
in the future, but the
1733
airport is
with the
going to
removal
send
of
a
the Class
letter
M
directly
license.
to Stark County
And-
requesting that they be included in it, and I don't know that, Dean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think
Commissioner
that the
Oderman.
county doesn't really have an issue with
Commissioner Fred.
that airport property being included in it. So
No.
if
Any further
legally we
discussion?
can do it,
I think if it's illegally been done, but I don't know why we'd leave a piece of it off.
Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Oderman?
Aye. Move the center point.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Sobeluk?
Aye.
Yeah.
Chair votes no.
All right, anybody have any comments or concerns regarding this? I think the meeting went very well. I mean, there was
Moving along.
very few concerns from the people that attended. You know, we kind of, to the east, we edged out some of the subdivisions that are more rural subdivisions, I think, that.
Trying to guess where we're at here. We're in reports.
So I think we were good there.
What's that?
HR.
HR reports. Now you're ready, Mrs. Dominic.
The north,
Thank
like you
you,
said, we
President Decker,
left that little
Commissioners.
industrial park out to the north because it is more of a.
First up on our
heavy
hiring
use
journal
industrial park,
is
and
the animal
they
control
did, you know,
officer
it's an area
position.
that
We did do interviews.
we
We
would
had,
make them comply
have
by
one
leaving it
person
up
in the
with our
background and
corridor
offer's been
standards,
made,
which can
so
add some
we'll see how that
significant
goes.
cost to some of those steel buildings
Communications
up there and
specialist,
stuff,
we have a
so,
couple positions open.
There was the
and,
concern that if we did
interviews were
that,
held. They
they
do
would
have
jump the
one
county line
person
and just
in the background. An offer was
build that
made.
building in Dunn County
And
and
we'll
miss
look at
out on it
opening that
totally,
up
so.
later on for the second position.
I'm glad you left
We
out
have an internal detective sergeant position
Thank you.
right now.
Yeah,
that was specifically
Applications
included on
were
Yeah. So-
being submitted for that, so we'll be working on
But anyway, if
the
there's any
interview
comments,
process.
concerns, you know.
Yeah.
Firefighter,
let me
we
know.
had
Let
3 openings
Natalie
for
know.
2022.
All right.
Chief Presnell's
We'll
taking a
move
little
on.
proactive approach and trying to get those offers made for 2022. We have hired one of
There's
our
not the-
part-time
not
employees to a
commissioners.
full-time
Isn't that
position.
normally on here?
And we have
Anything the
the
commissioner
other
wanna
2
bring up?
positions open and
No.
receiving applications for that.
Guess we looked it
Not on
up.
here, I
You
guess.
can add it,
Positions
you
in the
can,
museum
you can add
open,
it.
fossil
Isn't that on
preparator,
here?
interviews
We'll
were held
leave it that
on
way.
that, and they
We'll move on,
actually
I'll look for a motion to
are now
adjourn.
in
I'll
background
make that
phase on that
motion.
position.
Second, we have a motion and a second, all those in favor
Museum
say aye.
educator,
Aye.
kind of the
We are
same thing.
adjourned.
They're
Thank you,
at the
everyone.
interview phase. I don't know for sure if an offer was made on that one, but they did do interviews. Police officer, same story. We tend to have a difficult time filling those positions. As you can see, a hire was made back in July. We had 3 more openings, open the position back up. We have 2 in background and a new hire that was made there as well. Property appraiser technician, we have made an offer to that opening, and we are in the background phase.
Does everybody have this list? I've got like
No.
animal control officer, communication specialist, detective sergeant, firefighter 3.
Sorry, I will forward that to you. I think the set print was off when I sent it to Ms. Finstock, so I will forward that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Ours quits right after the first meeting.
Fossil preparator or whatever. 48 applications, is there like a set of skills for that? Because that's a lot of applications.
There's a lot of, there's a lot, they get a lot of applications for all their positions at the museum. It's, there's not a lot of openings for museum positions, and we did, I don't believe anybody was local. It was all
Fossils.
through Skype, and had some really good qualified candidates. And then we have a street maintenance operator. That position is open, and we're taking applications. Utilities manager, we did have that position open. And it has closed, so we're at the point of determining who will get an interview. Water reclamation facility, we did have 1 operator position open there, and that has been filled. Water utility operator position is open right now. We have 1 position. And then we had a part-time visitor services attendant for the museum, kind of help out on the weekends in the gift shop. So we're in the interview phase for that as well. Any questions on any of our openings?
All right, any questions for Mrs. Nominuk on the HR monthly report? None? Vice President Frederick just reminded me, he's keeping me on task here, we're way past the time limit on that, but 5:30 public comments, not on the agenda.
Commissioner Sobolek reminded me first.
Oh, okay.
Told me
So
to
you
pass
give-
it down.
Give credit where credit is due, unlike Mr. Zuroff and Ms. Binstock, so. Yeah. All right. If there's anyone in the audience that has any comment, please come forward. State your name and let us know your concern. If you're watching online, 701-456-7006. Anyone from the public?
The conference is currently empty. You will hear silence or music on hold when connected.
Anyone have any comments that were not on our agenda? Any concerns? Seeing no one from the public has any comments or concerns for the commission, we'll close the public comment section. We'll move into Mrs. Wenko, E, and Southwest Water.
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners. As stated in our executive work section, I will be very brief with regard to this. I know Lieutenant Hansen is just dying to give his monthly police report. As discussed, the city staff is just asking for a vote of moving forward, so to speak, for the city staff to reach out to Southwest Water to inform them that we do not intend to continue with the transfer service agreement contract, and we are going to be requesting a renegotiation of that agreement. So I would just like a vote of support from the commission to move forward and get that drafted.
Can I get a motion?
I'd make that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Frederick, second by Commissioner Walla. Any discussion on this letter?
Yes, I feel like we need to clarify just a little bit for the record what we're voting on here. We're not voting to stop Southwest Water being transferred into the city.
We're voting to give staff the authority to respond to Southwest Water and indicate to us that we do not want to enter into an automatic renewal of this contract. If we don't give notice.
Applies to the surrounding area to us, not to Dickinson proper.
It applies to the areas that are identified in the service agreement and the service area, and maybe Mr. Zuroff can identify that better.
Yes, like it's a transfer service agreement that if the city extends its city limits or provides water for an existing or future customer, we have to pay a fee to Southwest Water for that and for capital repayment, their future capital repayment.
Okay.
So it's nothing, there's nothing with the existing services we have for city water. It just, if we provide water to a future or current customer of Southwest Water.
Then we have to pay them a fee. And so
Correct. And that's part of the agreement.
we're wanting to make a discussion with them that we don't want to have that fee anymore, or change that fee.
Change some of the
language.
in that document.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
So we have a motion to approve this letter being sent forth to Southwest Water by Commissioner Frederick, second by Commissioner Walla. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobolek?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. That is it from administration this evening. We'll move into public safety. This month we have a police report by Lieutenant Hansen.
Good evening, President, Commissioners. Yeah, so I'm here to present the October police report. For you that don't know me, I guess I'll introduce myself. This is the first time I've been in front of the commission and done this report for you. My name is Matt Hansen. I'm currently our patrol lieutenant, pinch hitting this month for Chief Dossier to talk about the police department's October and the things that we accomplished here this month. So, as you can see in front of you, our calls for service, 2353. We'll show you a chart on where that would be in regards to the rest of the months. I know Lieutenant Clauser was here last month and talked to you guys. Very much so in line still with some of our busier months. You can see we're down a little bit from like July and September. We're going to probably start seeing a little bit of a slowdown as we start getting a little bit colder and cooler into our months. Calls for service, again, speak with officers, our suspicious vehicles, parking complaints, some of our welfare checks. Some of these are echoing still from last month's report. Some of the similar things, parking complaints, you're probably going to see come higher here now, especially now that we're moving into November months with our campers, boats, and that things that the public is going to be calling us more on. You're probably going to see next month that even move higher. Our cited traffic violations, speeding again being the highest, followed by driving without insurance, other driving violations there. I'm going to highlight some accidents here. We had 57 total accidents in the month of October. You can see on the bottom here, though, that we had one pedestrian accident. I wanted to highlight that piece for the commission here. That pedestrian accident happened on 10th Avenue East. We had a situation in about the 800 block of 10th Avenue East where we had a pedestrian crossing the road, and it was a very low mileage, but it was about a 5-mile-an-hour accident where there was transported to the hospital with no visible injuries. Just wanted to make sure that things were okay. But I know that went on there. It always jumps out at the screen of wondering what happened in that situation. We did have 3 injury accidents. On one of those injury accidents, it would be worth noting, we actually did have a rollover accident here inside city limits. Again, it was on 10th Avenue East, be just north of East Villard, near Lucky's Tesoro. It was a medical-related situation. Driver lost control. We did have a rollover accident. Would be a couple of the highlights here. You can see our traffic stop numbers for the month. Officers completed almost 450 traffic stops. The citations to warnings numbers. Here again, officers are in town are usually pretty lenient. A lot of times we give the drivers a break. A lot of warnings more than citations. Our arrest numbers were down total in October. This graph gets a little bit chaotic here, but just to sum it up, our arrest numbers are a little bit lower here than they had been the previous 3 months going into that. Behavioral health calls. Again, this continues to echo through the police department. This is a pretty popular issue that we respond to regularly, whether that be for welfare checks, whether this be for suicidal calls, or whether this be for mental health related calls. I don't have the exact numbers, but I do know on those suicidal threat calls that we were able to resolve most of these with just our tip 211, bringing Badlands Human Service Centers in, using outside resources that we have here. Most of those were resolved with just our communication with officers and such. So you can see maybe our call load was down a little bit. Traffic stops may have been down a little bit. We really wanted to highlight this piece for the commission. We accomplished in the month of October, I don't have the numbers as far as previous months about this, but our officers accomplished, sworn and non-sworn this would be, 592 hours of training in the month of October. This was kind of a lot of things that came into that. COVID is finally starting to open back up when it comes to law enforcement training. We also grabbed onto a couple of grant projects, brought trainings in-house. So on some of these, you can see not all of these are in-house, but we did have a couple that we'd want to highlight. So we did bring a couple of different leadership courses into the department. So building the leader within, we actually hosted that one in-house. We had multiple agencies here. That was one for some of our future leaders and some of our lower line leaders that we were coming and bringing in. Leadership training wise, myself actually was the SWAT commander piece. That again, leadership training based. The ICS 300 and 400, again, those are leadership type incident command courses. So we had been hearing that echo through the department that we wanted to be bringing those type of courses in, and we were able to bring in a lot of hours of training through the department. So that was a lot of our month activities, was just covering and getting training done. Criminal investigations. This is another one I really wanted to highlight here for a partner lieutenant of mine in Lieutenant Clauser here. We had a really busy month when it came to some of our higher risk calls. Criminal investigations took a heavy load in October. So you can see on the list here, on the call outs that we had, a couple of the highlights would be you see a robbery on the list, you see a couple of burglaries, seeing aggravated assaults, and you're seeing weapon offenses. So we had a couple different instances where we had shootings in town, we had stabbing in town, we had a robbery happen in town. So we had a couple major incidences that really drew resources, and we were having to bring investigations out. As you can see, 13 call-outs in a month is pretty high for that investigations unit to be coming out, especially when you're looking at what they're coming out to. Good to know that on nearly all of these injuries were minor. People were treated, and investigations had done a really good job as far as working with the street resources and resolving these situations as quickly and properly as we could. The schools had a busy month. We actually had, a little highlight here, they did a lot of presentations. So we had Red Ribbon Week a couple of weeks ago. So that kept our school resource officers really busy. They hit every single one of our elementary schools doing their safety talks when it comes to Red Ribbon Week. We brought canines into the schools and let the kids interact with officers and do a Q&A session with them. Our SROs have been busy. Again, they're doing constant talks in the high school and the middle school for you, as you can see here. Records department has been busy. You're going to see the next month they're going to be even busier. We just recently had done a sex offender compliancy check. So again, that usually keeps our record staff busy, but records was busy in October running fingerprints and sex offender registrations. And with all that work, obviously our dispatch center is taking a lot of calls and sending a lot of outbound calls coming in. And then lastly, to wrap up your report here, our gals out at the animal shelter have also been busy. We've been able to return a lot of our dogs, you can see here, back to owners. We've been actually having to issue out some of our cats to shelters to find owners onto them. Our dogs, we've been a little bit more lucky. Currently, right now, we still are sitting on some cats out at the shelter, though. And like I said, I highlighted the Red Ribbon Week. We also provided the parade route for the DSU homecoming event, which was earlier in the month in October. And then to wrap that up, these are our two officers here. We had Officer Jesse Hellinger and Officer Abby Johnson here, helped out and did trick or trunk downtown on the 31st, the afternoon.
I heard that wasn't busy at all.
Yeah, I stood in line.
Very cold.
Yeah, stood in line and got cold enough. Yeah, available for any questions that you might have on the report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Lieutenant Hanson?
Lieutenant Hanson, I see that Chief Dossinger is participating in No Shave November. Why not you?
If I could grow a beautiful beard like that, you would see it on my face.
Same reason I don't want to come in. I relate. I can relate.
Yeah, I don't want to come in front of the commissioner looking the way I would 2 weeks after not shaving, so.
Yeah, Mr. Winningham would have a flashback if I tried to grow a beard. He'd think I was Taliban. So, any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll move right into planning. Mr. Hadley, you don't get to get cut off tonight. Lucky you. You just had to wait till
After 7.
7:10. So.
Had to wait. It's worth the wait, sir. Thank you, Mr. President and Commission. Item I have for you tonight is Resolution 31-2021, and it's a final plat for the Acres subdivision. It was pulled from last time's agenda. It had a plat item that needed to be addressed. That was addressed today, so we put it back on. It was on the agenda, but we were going to pull it. So it is ready to go. Staff would recommend approval of the Acres subdivision and Resolution 31-2021.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hadley? All right, hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Walla, second by Commissioner Oderman. Any further discussion, questions on the acre subdivision? Final plat, resolution 31-2021. Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Oderman?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Sobola?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioners, item 10.
John?
Anything?
Mr. President.
This is your time. Mr. Oderman.
You know, I would like us to look into the gaming code stuff, and how we can kind of clean that up to make sure that we have some guidance, because like I said earlier, maybe it's a little bit of the libertarian coming out in me, but I struggle telling someone that they can't do something if it's not codified, because to me that goes into government dictating what people's rights are as opposed to a higher power. So it's important to me that we have these conversations so that we've got the guidance that we can make those decisions accordingly. So, but I also do want to give the commission some credit. I think there's a lot of times where we get criticism from the community for just being a 5-0 rubber stamp. We had 2 3-2s tonight.
Yeah.
Well done. And then I just want to also give Mr. Winningham a verbal pat on the back here. He's doing a great job with the Youth Commission. We had a really great first formal meeting this week, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So, well done.
Thank you for that. I'll just make a comment about the public hears this. It's a legal maxim. I know that the city attorney, I'm not a lawyer, but our code should be written for the common citizen, such as myself, that is understandable. So we are going to go forward and look at how we're going to codify the gaming. You mentioned about that if it's not prohibited, then it must be allowed. The thought process that is that we are dealing with a society that has good judgment. So the intent of that statement is, it goes back centuries, but it's that the judgment that we're seeing in society is that they would bring us applications that maybe would consider differently, such as alcohol in vision, we could drink alcohol and have a vision test. Like, I'm not sure, like, that's for this governing body to determine whether that's good judgment by the citizen. So I think you're correct. But when you philosophically, because you like to talk about philosophical things, we have to have a society with good judgment coming before this board, and that's where you can then make not have so many laws written to prohibit things.
I think the tension that I have is, does government always know what the right decision is?
And that's why you're elected.
Yeah.
They used to not have to put warnings on screwdrivers. Now they do.
Or hot
So-
coffee.
Or hot dogs, yes. So. Anything else, commissioners?
So a broken record topic here. One thing that I did hear, one of the alcohol licensees stated that they couldn't find our ordinance update online. And so I don't know if people are still having trouble finding the agenda and the attachments online. Just something that maybe we need to look at one more time to see if I just know I had an issue that morning when we had P&Z, and I'm not in the P&Z, so I had to have my computer overrode a little bit to get into it. So I'm not sure if that's not just something that we shouldn't address one more time.
Susie, just to go with that though, yesterday I pulled it up, but it pulls up the full agenda and all the attachments as one PDF. So it's like 155 pages long. But the work session wasn't on there, but the regular meeting information.
Like when you pulled it up online, if you
On my
weren't signed
phone.
into your...
I did on
Okay.
my phone. I went to the city website, went to meetings, and clicked on current agenda, and it all popped up.
We have things that now, you go into our website, click on the website where it says meeting and minutes, you go into there, and
Perfect.
And depending on probably when they looked for it too. Maybe it wasn't posted yet.
Sure. Okay.
It's under review. The call-out flyer on the city website currently is the blue tab that says meeting and minutes. It goes to another page. You can, then it's somewhat easier. You don't have to have any special software. You can click it and it's PDF. It is under review. There is a new website that we are attempting to roll out that is a lot more user-friendly. But we just haven't brought that to the commission to review. It'd be good to have that in December, and I'll have Mr. Meyer come forward and show you that new website, because I think ideally we want it to be as user-friendly to the youngest person trying to get on, and our youth commission may help us with that in the way that they use social media.
Yes,
And
they're
maybe even the
doing
oldest
very
person
well.
trying to get on.
Right. So remember, youth are tech dependent, not necessarily tech savvy, but they can manipulate screens. But we want it for every citizen to be able to,
Yes.
because it does come up periodically, and so we keep adapting because we have a great IT team. But I think that will be next, is showing you the next phase of our rollout.
Sure. Thank
And
you.
I would, my only comment tonight, I just like a quick sit rep on the new city hall. I think this one's telling us in ways to get out with the speakers and the
So we do,
microphones.
so, Mr. President, we will
Heat.
bring in a more formal presentation. We think we're on glide path to be in the commission room. So was the one that was long pole intent before, by the end of December. So timing, there's a few problems that have occurred with some subfloor in the very front of the current entry, and that's had nothing to do with the commission, so that slows us down, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. We're waiting for a report on that. But if you look at timeline, we should have all city staff in what I'm calling from here forever, the public counter. So all city functions for the public counter to come in. We should be in there by mid to the end of December. That's still on timeline. We do have most of the items in. Mr. Zuroff has been tracking it exclusively, so I know he can probably comment if he needs to. But there is some challenges. And even though I think I've said it for several months, it's an aggressive timeline, and I think the work that's being done has been fairly diligent, and there's been several staff members, Ms. Carlson included, who has painted rooms, who has got things ready. So I'm ready to move in. But the idea is that when we can let the utility billing clerks and our other public counter that we currently have, once we're ready to move them over, I feel like we can just, it will be in short order. So mid to end of December.
Okay, thank you.
I did have one thing for Ms. Wanko, and I forgot to bring it up on the liquor license thing. Our Class D license does have a restriction that says no electronic or mechanical gaming devices or games of chance shall be allowed upon the premises of the license hereunder.
If I recall correctly, so for example, and Vince has to correct me if I'm wrong here, that fish, for example, is allowed because they have it designated in that specific area. It's clearly, it's got its own separate particular area. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
But I mean, they're serving alcoholic beverages under this license in there.
About the gaming? Yeah, I'm confused.
I mean, it's right here. I'm reading it as that right now. Class D restaurant on sale license. Item number 3, no electronic or mechanical gaming devices or games of chance shall be allowed upon the premises licensed hereunder.
Okay, so if you have a bar, if you have liquor, you are allowed to have gaming. So like players, they can have gaming in their bar. That fish can have gaming as long as it's separate from the restaurant. The restaurant area cannot have gaming.
It doesn't say anything like that in here. It says the city may grant a restaurant on sale license to any restaurant within the city limits which authorizes the licensee to sell beer, liquor on an on sale basis only, subject to the following terms and conditions. Yeah, that's the Class D license, but one of the restrictions under that Class D license is no electronic or mechanical gaming device for anyone licensed under that license.
That is correct. They can have it in their bar area or a separate.
But it's the same license.
have gaming with liquor and as long as it's separated from mine.
But they have a Class D license. And it says if you have a Class D license, you can't have gaming. I don't care if they have a bar or not a bar.
Well, that, if you have alcohol in the state, you are allowed to have gaming. So if the bar.
Yeah, we need to clean ours up.
I think
I
so.
will take a look, and when we bring it back for the second, I'll have it addressed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, after you said that, I didn't remember that, but, I mean, it specifically is a exception to that license.
Anything else, commissioners? All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.